Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Oh, okay. Hold on one second. It's gonna be a long one. Hey, everybody. Welcome to SYNCTANK.
That we should know.
Well, and Will Morgan, how you doing?
Not bad. How are you guys?
Who has the highest amount of like whisper now? I hear like so much more whisper on the mic. Let me just check that real quick.
Whisper. Oh, I can turn this down.
Yeah, let's turn that down a bit.
Is that better?
It's got like the so much. It's so much.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, it's been a while since I've been home, so things have changed. I just wanted to show off.
Whisper.
Aaron Corbett, one of our viewers, sent me this amazing Pog making kit, which even comes with the milk cap Pog making refiller pack, which I've gotten used to making some Pogs with. Here are the stamps out, and you can imagine they look like this, and you can put on one side the art or whatever.
Shit. Are you in
So,
Santa
yeah.
Cruz?
I'm in
You
Santa Cruz.
right now?
Yeah.
Dude, we should hang out sometime and play
Yeah.
some Pogs, because I got a lot of Pogs and I got some Slammers too. I'm
Dude.
all about it.
Dude, I got a box of Slammers. I don't know exactly where they are in the remote vicinity, but the
Now,
point
don't
is,
you
yeah.
have to register Pogs and Slammers in the state of California?
Yeah,
I
unfortunately.
registered my Pogs years ago. Yeah,
Okay.
the Slammers. The Slammers. the Pogs are actually allowed to buy the Pogs.
And just
Slammers
the metal Slammer.
Slammers are dangerous.
Dude, I'm kind
yeah.
of upset about how much money I spent on those things when you can just go around and make them now.
Dude,
Well, I mean,
you spend
this is
money
the-
on Pogs?
This is an old kit. This clearly
Kinda.
this is from the 80s or 90s. It's not.
Dude, you're supposed to win, dude. You get all you need is like 6 Pogs, and then from there you just have to kick ass
There
and
was,
just
like-
increase your collection.
1995. So that's not new. So don't worry. You could have been making Pogs a while. Well, I'm just saying.
In Florida, it was different. The way you collected Pogs is that you went to Eckerd drugstore and you stole them by putting them in a comic book and pretending to read it, and they would slide into your bag. Or that's how everyone I knew got Pogs.
So they were
Wow.
like they fed into. Also, I got Pogs from cereal boxes. There were definitely some pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Post
Pogs.
had. I
Trading-
remember having like
trading
a
them.
David Justice.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. I have like a Zorbu Slammer from like the Flintstones, you know, like the green guy that I got from Post cereal from the Cocoa
green
Pebbles
guy.
or something like that. Yeah.
Cool.
Did anyone have OJ Pogs? Those were pretty big for a little while, like OJ Simpson Pogs.
Well, it was funny
don't
you
know.
mentioned comic books. I was all about Spawn Pogs, I think. So I loved
Dude.
Spawn was the big thing for me.
I'm still kind of like processing the OJ Simpson Slammer. That's pretty crazy.
That exact one was in my collection.
That's pretty wild.
Does that
So,
say
like, Pog-
327 on it, or was it different?
Pogs are crazy because they have all of the. Wait, do you see 327? Sorry, 327. I kind of see a 7.
I don't know what that says on there. 320. I think it 32 maybe.
I mean, yeah.
Was that his number in college? Maybe
Yeah, that was his number.
32. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Still, kind of looks like a 7 to me. I don't know. The idea of like putting like magic into Pogs makes a lot of sense. Like you can make any sigil, and then you get some metal and you slam that sigil.
But it
That's
was all
crazy,
about
right?
sigils, right? It was all just like branding. It was basically just branding for different
Well,
licenses.
originally they were actual milk caps and the juice caps for that for Pog. That's the drink. It's called Pog, right?
Right.
So that
really?
started on the Big Island.
High orange guava, I believe.
Yeah. No.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Passion-
sounds right.
passion
Yeah,
orange
that's
guava.
it.
Yeah. No. I had a friend when I was in.
Basically, just a cheap excuse to print a logo on a thing and brand it as that thing. You know,
Well,
it's
but do you remember-
sigil move because it's pretty worthless, other than the fact that it had Spawn on it. Was my point.
Did you remember the Legend of Hawaiian Slammers Pog cartoon though? Right, like the original cartoon was like it was this hyper Scientology cartoon that was all about how
Volcano, of course.
there's these gods that get trapped in a volcano, and here they are. They're like, right?
It literally
They're-
is Scientology. It's not like
Yeah.
it's like Scientology. It's kind of telling you the story of Scientology a little bit.
Then this boy,
Wow, Legend
this
of-
little boy,
wow.
this little boy named like I think his name is like Ron or something like or Elron or it's like they make it pretty much L. Ron Hubbard as a child finds at a volcano
Wow.
these slammers, and when he helps the slammers get out of the volcano, but then they end up being like Captain Planet rings. Like if you use the slammers, you can open up the ancient Hawaiian gods that were trapped in the volcano.
Why isn't
Boom. There it is.
American licensing this? Like,
And here's a
I
bad guy.
plan
went
to
and
cover
found-
this one actually. There's a new series I'm starting called Saturday Morning Conspiracies. I did He-Man, but this one's on the list. But I'm gonna have to get Andreas on to do it.
I mean, I just remember thinking like, okay, there's a lot of lore to the Pogs, clearly, but also just there was a time when everything was about Scientology, right? Like there was the Final Fantasy movie, 1999, and it was about spirits, ghosts that
Spirits
took
with them.
over
It was
the
like 2000, I think.
2000, not 1999.
Maybe 2000.
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's it.
But this
Because
movie,
they
though,
also
yeah,
did like the Animatrix had something by the same crew and used the same voice actors also.
Totally.
I just remember like Steve Buscemi was in the Final Fantasy movie, and as they were
And-
explaining what was going on, and they're like, "Look, there's spirit ghosts that are taking over your thetans or whatever." And then I was just like, "What?" And then all of a sudden, Steve Buscemi's because I was like 9, and then Steve Buscemi's character is like, "This is all starting to make a weird kind of sense." And I was like, "Oh man, like they paid you a
Usually
lot,
analog to
didn't they?"
the midi chlorians, right?
Dude.
Essentially.
So yeah, Will Morgan himself, the Will Morgan who was disappeared, is like been found, and this is the Will Morgan, the Masonic legend. Here he is.
Time traveler.
There's
Look at
also
him.
Will. Will,
We
are
have
you
him in a
familiar-
room. We have him in a room.
Will, are you familiar with the Cuban revolutionary Will Morgan?
There's another one.
Well,
From the anti-Mason
There's one that I'm
we were talking about last week.
I don't know. No, this guy was like, he was executed in the 60s. Yeah, this
Oh.
guy. He was actually executed the same day that, well, that Barbie's boyfriend Ken was created, which is completely random
That doesn't feel that
Right.
random
No,
because
but-
he was just like G.I. Joe, right? Like G.I. Joe
Hmm.
was the similar size figure to Barbie. And so if you wanted Barbie
Right.
to mate with somebody, she would get with G.I. Joe, but then they had to put in somebody that was, you know, in between, you know. So like while
between.
G.I. Joe is off, then he gets to be Jody for Barbie, right? He's Barbie's Jody is Ken basically. I don't know, something like that.
I will buy
Yeah,
it. But yeah,
I mean, the guy kind of looks like a GI Joe, like a random GI Joe. It's weird because we did track
Like a dandy from the USO show, you know.
But I mean, that's what Barbie is, right? Barbie's just like a porn doll. Like, there's been so many times that I've read
She's not a
individuals
pog.
talking about like girls especially talk about how the first time that they like simulated sex was with a Barbie doll.
You know the
Which I always-
the
Of course.
the Build Lily doll, like the original. This is what the
Right.
Barbie doll is based on. It's
Right.
like a German officers would give it to their secretaries when they had affairs. It was like a
Right.
trophy of affairs.
So
So
the
makes so
story
much sense.
goes that the libido went down. I think my camera's out. The libido went down in Europe after World War II. So it's kind of like it was like a porn comic that also had a set like a product with like it was a comic that had a product just like G.I. Joe was like a commercial for a toy. Barbie was actually like sort of like the early version of a blow-up doll.
I mean, it's definitely
Yeah.
some sort of a magical fetish. But wait, there's more. $20 super chat from True Norther, pepping my step. Farmer's Almanac says some interesting stuff on and around April 8th this year. Thanks for the lives, each and every one of you. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
shout
you,
out
True
Farmer
Norther.
Almanac.
That's pretty sweet. All right, April 8th. Let's look it up. Farmer's Almanac.
That's the eclipse. The eclipse coming up. The Great American Eclipse Part 2. is on
What do you
April 8th.
expect to happen,
Oh,
man?
I sent you that, right? Did I send you that today, or did I send it to Will Morgan? Who the fuck did I send that to? The eclipse thing with the line of the eclipse.
Oh, that was me. That was me.
Okay,
Waco.
okay.
It went through Waco. It went through Austin.
Yeah, went through. Yeah, went Waco. Yeah.
Really? There was a
Yeah,
Waco.
so
There was an eclipse during Waco? What?
To me, the craziest thing about that is so there's two Great American Eclipses. There was one in 2017, and then there's this one coming up. And if you find the exact midpoint in between those two eclipses, it's the day the first COVID vaccine was administered on.
Of course it was.
Which was the day that was 666 months after Trump's 19th birthday. So, yeah, and then the other thing with April coming up is the Bitcoin halving. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, what do you mean Bitcoin halving? What's happening with
Oh, the
Bitcoin
halving every 4 years. The new supply of Bitcoin issued is halved in half. That's the way the whole protocol works, and so every 4 years, the supply goes down, and it usually coincides with a bull market and like a increased demand. So it could be a big crazy time in April.
We could see like a double. We could see like every once in a while, crypto has
It's
a double.
a quantum leap. Yeah. It's an
Is this a
exponential.
leap year?
Yeah. Yep.
Is it a leap
It
year?
is.
It
It
is.
is a leap year.
Wow, interesting. That's pretty cool.
So
yeah,
I've
that's
noticed
good.
a little sync about the apocalypse always happening on February 28th, which is actually the beginning date of Waco, because the siege actually happens on February 28th and continues all the way until the 19th of April.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because they were in there for like 51. They were in there. When you think about it, they're in there for a long time. But other movies and media have used leap year, and I have a theory why, as a symbol of Judgment Day. But before I say why I think, I want to know what you guys think.
You guys have thoughts on leap years? Because leap years are really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought it'd be cool to be born on leap year, because then it would feel like you were only have a birthday every 4 years, so you were younger. You know.
The jokes get old quick, though. I bet.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want it to be like a joke. I'd want it to be like, literally you get to live for like 300 years or 400 years because of it. That'd be awesome.
Like
So
leap year is your way into being sort of like a dim-eye Highlander.
Yeah, like or at
Not
least a
full
picture of
power
Dorian,
Highlander.
picture of Dorian Gray Highlander, you know, but something. Like,
to relate this to the number 237, which I'm pretty good at, leap years. There's several features of the calendar which seem to have been encoded with certain numbers. 153 is another one, where every 5 months, in 5 consecutive months that do not include February, there are always 153 days. So from March to whatever is 153. So anyway, but when it comes to the leap year, it's a 4-year cycle where in the first 2 months there are 59 days in January and February for 3 years, and then in the 4th year there are 60 days in January and February. Now, if you add up 59 plus 59 plus 59 plus 60, it's 237. So the leap day in a leap cycle is always the 237th day that is built up in February in the whole cycle. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, to me, kind of amazing.
I'm trying to think of like what movies have leap year in them, but I can't think of too many. Like, there's like
the
a
one with
Roman
Demi Moore,
Demi Moore.
the Seventh Seal.
Oh
There's the
yeah.
one where-
Sure.
But I think that it was on leap year. But it's weird because I think is because it's kind of a symbol of like changing the ordinances of God, like the calendar of the Jewish, the lunar calendar is actually more correct because you don't lose time.
Oh, okay.
So the whole reason we have like a leap year is because of that gap when the sun stands still for a second, right? So does that make sense?
I don't know, but I know the best Vedic the best astrologers I've met have been like they incorporate the Vedic and the Western like as one mechanism, almost like they're kind of like complementary, but like they I don't know. It's very rare that you meet anybody that uses both, but follow the sun or the moon. Like the Hebrew calendar is all based upon the moon. You know,
Right.
our calendar is based upon the sun. It gets kind of trippy.
So because the moon's okay, so the moon's the moon is more regular than the sun's rotation.
Yeah,
And so
people go
every 4
crazy.
years we lose that
But
certain amount of time, which
yeah.
is only like a fourth of a day, and those 4
But they
days add up.
synchronize every 19 years, right? So a lunar solar alignment happens every 19 years. So there's ways to also you know, to keep them in check if you really want to.
But what I'm saying is like man's compensation for that is the leap year, which is actually in disharmony with what God's harmony is, so to speak.
Well, isn't that anything that we kind of Jimmy rig like that?
Yeah, like even the Mayan calendar has like 5 days out of time or 6 days out of time sometimes where they are not counted in the regular 13 moon cycle because
dude, it's so funny when people will react to like they'll be like, look at all of these Jewish holy days lining up with these like, you know, these eclipses or these events. Well, it's a lunar calendar, so of course it will. That's how it works. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Wait, they're not behind the procession of the stars?
You don't know that. You can't be sure. You know,
they might.
I mean, because yeah, you saw how China's making new moons. It could be. Okay, but what about things that we all care about? There's a new movie. Oh wait,
I heard something too recently that I guess the math is really obvious, but that in everyone's lifetime now, anyone that's alive, every presidential election has always been in a leap year.
Yeah,
which I mean, if it's every 4 years, yeah, but it's only not in the years that end in zeros, I guess.
Oh, that's interesting.
I was going to
that's like a weird epiphany, huh?
The election side with
because the presidential.
Wow.
I mean, it's like basically the most powerful man on stands in opposition of God, right? because it's God's law against man's law, so to speak.
That's pretty crazy.
Right, but yeah, man's law isn't really what man's law used to be either. So there's that. So it's like if I was to go off on my thing about how the cremation of care ceremony at Bohemian Grove is like a reversal of the Golden Bough ceremony, in that instead of killing the king and letting the challenger marry the king's daughter, they burn an effigy, like symbolic of the one who would challenge the king, and then celebrate it. It's like the killing of the archetypal fool. But like that is what we had, what man's law was anthropologically, which was as close of an approximation to what we saw in nature as we could come up with. I mean, that's pretty much the whole argument that's given in the older pre-Margaret Mead anthropology. But yeah, so I mean, we're in opposition to our own law in a way. Like we're doing reversals on what it was that we had built. So it's not, which wasn't trying to be in opposition. It was trying to like align itself with and kind of like integrate into that other order that we were probably more in touch with, or not probably, we were more in touch with.
I have an insight with that. That's what, okay. So most of God's ordinances are based around like the number 7, right? So like 777 is a big, like jackpot with God, but 666, of course, as discussed before, everybody here knows this. I'm just beating a dead, Schrodinger's cat, but 666 is like a symbol of the ordinance or customs of man. Like this is like a big belief in the 7-day Adventist. Like that they call them like the days are off. The man put the Sabbath on the 6th day instead of the 7th day. And so 6 is like a symbol of man's ordinance, when 7 is a symbol of God's ordinance.
Right, but it's a hexagram. So the idea was, as stated, like the way that the days of the week were treated, if you're talking about like the Hebrew calendar, is like the whole thing with Shabbat is that the 6 days are literally encircling or twisting around rather the 7th. It's more of like a spiral around that 7th point, and that 7th point is transcendent. That's why we equate it with Shekinah and Malkut, because that's at the 7 lower Sephirot that make up the material realm of the Kabbalistic tree, the terrestrial realm. She's at the bottom, right? So like, but that's not really her place. Her place is to be united with Ze'er, Tiferet, but that's the exile. So they say as long as she's at the base, Israel's in exile. As long as Shekinah is in exile, Israel's in exile. Shekinah. So that's the idea. Yeah.
Before I forget, Shaddai. What is that? How you pronounce it? Shaddai.
Shaddai.
Shaddai. Yeah. I've been blowing up your. It's 2 Ds. It's 2 Ds. I've been blowing up the chat room for like a month now with this.
Yeah, the gematria of Shaddai is 314. It's the same gematria as Metatron.
The meaning is, it says like God Almighty or something like the great and powerful one.
Totally.
Koresh, going back to Waco, Koresh equated it with the Shekinah, basically said that it was the great-breasted one. That's when I instead of looking up what the meaning of the word was, which was the internet telling me that it just meant God Almighty, God of the Destroyer, so forth and so on. I looked up what the actual Hebrew means, and it said breast or boobs. So he was telling the truth. That's Shekinah.
There's something to it, definitely, because El Shaddai or Shaddai is the same gematria as Metatron, which is something that Kabbalists have been hung up on as it relates to the story where Abraham is sacrificing Isaac and his hand is stopped by an angel. They give an argument for why that's Matat, and so they say that that there's what this is so weird, but they call it the bird's nest. So there's like it's the placement of da'at actually in between the supernal and the terrestrial. And so you're right in that it apparently relates to the middle pillar, which rises. This isn't a static thing, but it has certain dynamics and like those dynamics are like part of the revelation of, you know, what the dynamics through which we go through these kind of formative processes. This is all like the Sefer Yetzirah is the book of formation that describes how this works. But you're looking at something that's trying to replicate an organic order, but then we get further removed from that. So like that's what they call like the klipot, or like, you know, in Ezekiel's vision when he has to transcend like 4 sheaths of the storm wind, there's like 4 levels to the storm wind for him to get through to the other, to be on the other side, you know, like that is related to the shells of a nut. And so that kind of that enshrouds the Kabbalistic tree. So like this is like the essential emanated flow that animates like organic life, or like gives life to organisms. And so they're like, it's lightning, it's trees, it's the way that plant life develops, and it's human beings, it's animals. It's like all organic life like follows these dynamics. So it's a template, you know, and then that template gets repeated. That's why it's not just this tree even. It's like a fractal. But the difference is with a fractal is that like if you're looking at like Mandelbrot set and you go into any part, you'll find the whole, but it's always the same. And I think they might be changing that now, and that's what we're seeing with AI as far as the replication of what we can accomplish, you know, visually or technologically. But like the idea with the Kabbalistic tree is it's like a fractal, but every time you go into any part, it's not just the whole, it has the same dynamics as the whole, but it's constantly transforming, it's constantly different, just like we see in like life expressions like flowers and animals. Just like how many different ways can you rearrange an eyes, 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth to like make a new face, you know? It's just like it seems endless. Yeah, but it's not endless if you look at Zena LaVey and compare her to Taylor Swift.
Wait, because like, all right, here's, before we go there, the thing is, like, earlier today something happened to me that really made me okay. Twisters. Do you guys know about this?
Yeah. The sequel to Twister. Yeah.
So like Dan Goldsmith, our buddy's brother, you know, but also our buddy, writes, nobody asked for a sequel to Twister. Not one human being on this planet. And I can go back and just see how many posts I've written about how much I need this in my life. I just watched Twister again. Like, did you notice at the end of the film they were only saved by the mitzvah of a tefillin? I mean, like, don't we deserve more Twister? Like, so
wait a minute, what's the thing with tefillin and Twister? Wait, what are you saying to me?
So you know, like at the end of the movie, like they're under this tornado and they strap the tefillin around their arm.
Oh, the strap.
So,
okay.
He's saying that the leather belt they tie themselves down with in the middle of the twister is symbolic of the same thing they used to strap that to their foreheads.
Very clearly.
Or no, to down the left arm. Did they do it to the left arm?
I think.
Is it her left arm or
look at it. That's her left arm.
That is the left arm.
Okay.
No,
that's why.
Actually, no. Is that? I can't. I think that's her right arm, isn't it?
I'll have to watch the movie.
Let's zoom in. So he comes in here.
He's just talking about.
He's got his left arm around her.
Valid.
He's tough. He is the leather strap right now. His left arm. And look at that. And then she's strapped in, and it's just like, oh my God, we're gonna pray, and then they pray. I mean, like, if you don't, you got a leather strap on.
I got you. Wrapping in the strap in the prayer. I remember now.
Wait, the whole movie is clearly about.
Wait, that's the communication. Wait. The communication with God in especially the prophecies is usually called the whirlwind. Like, just look.
Right. That's what I'm saying about Ezekiel's vision. That's what I'm tripping out on.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's used extreme. Like, you were on point. I'm not arguing with you at all, because that's used a lot in Ezekiel. They basically use the word whirlwind, but that's what a tornado is. Like, in the middle of the tornado, they see God.
But there's more than one tornado, man. It has to be twisters, bro. It has to be
but there's the whirlwind from the related with the ark, as they're going through the desert, right? So like with the tabernacle, so they have a whole whirlwind there, and they show that in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And apparently Trump has the Ark of the Covenant at his Mar-a-Lago estate. I don't know what to make of that. It's a replica, of course. Yeah.
Do you think that's why he puts all the orange paint on, is to protect him so his face doesn't melt when they open the ark up?
So I mean,
like the Wizard of Oz also.
any movie, I was gonna say though, like, so this is a big thing with movies. You can't make a movie, and well, it used to be at least the way in the 80s and the 90s, you'd make a movie and it had to be a movie for the sake of being a movie, and that's a good thing to do. You shouldn't make a book into a movie and make it just be like a book because you could just read the book unless you just refuse to read books. So, like Tank Girl, for instance, Tank Girl is an incredible movie. It's nothing like the comic book. The comic book's amazing. You should read the comic book. But Tank Girl is incredible. I think the same thing can be said for Super Mario Brothers, right? It tells its own story. Twister, yes, it's about cloud chasing, but what is the cloud chasing? It's a lot more than what the book's about. Like someone's told that they're going to make a movie, they're going to make it about a book. They know that people are interested in that thing, and then they're going to put it into their opportunity for symbolism and for what they really believe in, right? So I mean, especially like when you think about this idea, people are saying that they don't want a Twister, they didn't want a new Twister. The only people saying that are people that didn't read into the movie for its like it's esoteric.
Right. They made
Alex likes Twister, right?
the Shining shows up at what is it, Alex? 42 minutes exactly, or something like that.
No, well, it's at 42 minutes is the moment where the Twister splits in two, and he says, well, "Okay, we got sisters," and it's like twin tornadoes.
The sisters, yeah.
At 42, and then at some point, you see his odometer for just a brief second, and it's 237,000 miles or whatever. It's very clearly 237. And then the Shining shows up on the drive-in theater at the end, and the tornado comes and rips it apart with Jack Nicholson's face on it. And
yeah, it's interesting the scenes that they chose to show too from The Shining.
Yeah, it's like, kind of out of
it's all very intentional.
It doesn't make sense, it's not real time, obviously.
Before I forget, David Saltburn, direct hit. Saltburn is totally a representation of The Shining, down to fact
no, I know, the
entity of Saltburn makes people go crazy. Like
so dude, thank you. Dude, so the thing was, they used salt while they were filming The Shining. For all the snow in The Shining is fucking salt, and it was like burning their skin.
Oh,
it was very irritable. And that's also it's an alchemy thing.
Sexy. Here, I could drink your bath.
Did you watch Ready Player One? And it was specifically the Shining scene. So what did you think about that? Because the idea of I feel like they're trying to make even the point there that it's clearly about the symbology of The Shining. That it's so important and everything.
Yeah, I mean Spielberg, it very cheapens everything as usual. But it's interesting how it's like there's a secret in The Shining that we have to figure out that leads to the next quest or whatever. But
right,
I haven't actually watched the whole movie, so. But
I think Oasis Time Flies is like a decoder of that movie, because like there's like lyrically like that whole part with The Shining, like they're saying shine in like there's like 3 songs in a row or something like that have this whole The Shine thing. But yeah, in Ready Player One, it's called Oasis is the thing that they're the goggle thing that they're using. Yeah.
And so Patrick Crowley, produced by Patrick Crowley. Okay, that's interesting. I wanted to say real quick about Twisters that I just noticed the casting there of Kiernan Shipka, who was Don Draper's daughter in Mad Men, and that sort of is inspired casting to me. But also because the main guy, the actor, is Glenn Powell, and so that name Glenn also works for Mad Men too, because there's a character in Mad Men called Glenn, who is actually like a doppelganger of Stanley Kubrick, and there's
the episode The Monolith in Mad Men, and that's when he looks down the elevator shaft, and that's kind of the whole thing for the whole show is that he's falling. So if you see the intro to every show where he's like falling, he almost falls down the elevator shaft, that's that Monolith episode. That was loaded with symbolism.
Yeah, but it's not just that episode. Glenn's I don't think even in that Monolith episode.
Right, but it was a Babel thing, right? Like he was connecting it to Babel because that's the thing with 2001 is that you're what's that?
Go back to Glenn Powell. This is really dumb.
So obviously,
this guy is taking the place of Bill Paxton.
Yeah, look at him. He's a Disney. Right? He's a Disney setup, bro. He's a Spy Kid.
Because game over, man. Game over. Spy Kids 3. October 21st, man.
Oh, you're right. Oh, wow, that's a good one.
Pretty brutal. I'm Jack and Bobby.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I get it.
So he's like a WB kid, but still. Man,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, he was in Top Gun.
He's
He
in
was
Maverick.
Gotta wish him well.
but whatever.
Huh.
Yeah. But yeah, so Twister, Kieran and Shippa, Glenn. Yeah.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
like,
that's
about-
appropriate too because it's Twisters. You had Alien was Alien followed by Aliens. This is Twister
Oh,
followed by Twisters.
damn.
Bill Paxton connection.
Boom, boom.
And this movie's done, right? Like, so this movie's coming out in June this year. Like, they just edited.
Yeah, this is the last Twisters. There's not going to be a more Twisters.
I don't know about that. I feel like a Twisters 3 is like inevitable now.
Well, you can't
because-
call it.
No, they'll
Twisters
come out
3
with
now.
they'll come out with Tremor. They'll do it
Yeah.
in reverse.
Will there be a?
It'll be
Oh,
dope.
you know something I know.
Tremors
about
is the
Twisters?
prequel.
Tremor. Tremors is a yeah. They'll call
the
the prequel
prequel
to
to
Tremors Tremor, and it'll take place somewhere exotic. You know, it won't be in the Midwest or whatever. It'll be like in the Amazon or something, and it'll just be one giant tremor. Yeah. That's fine.
Earlier though, we
Do you
talked
think
to.
Twisters
okay.
will have cow jokes. So you know,
Yes.
how, like, they do
But they're
that
not just
Bill
jokes.
and
It's like
Ted
it's
thing.
gonna be an unblemished red calf. It's gonna be flying by.
They're not gonna be eating steak, I bet.
It could be.
Well, I
yeah.
mean,
All these
okay,
kids are
so-
like
They're all
Disney
vegetarians
kids. So
now.
yeah.
So like, wait. My point is, when people like update a series that or a franchise that hasn't been resurrected in like 30 years, they always use the same jokes.
Yeah.
And Twisters has the "we have cows" joke.
Well, what do we have now instead of cows, right?
Is it
like
is it going to be
cannabis
the same
pharmacies
exact
flying by?
thing, just like paint by numbers?
Is there like okay, so like A Serious Man, right? You guys have seen A Serious Man and the ending of A Serious Man with the Twister. So like that to me, like when I saw that, there was just no question. It's like they're talking about Ezekiel's vision, and they give kind of a clue with the these are the members of the airplane. So you know, the rabbi had taken the kids' Walkman thing, whatever radio, and before he gives it back to him, he tells them the 4 members of Jefferson Airplane, and the way he says it, he goes, "These are the members of the airplane." And so you have the like there's air is like one plane. Earth, fire, water, whatever. It's like the elements as they relate to the suits of like tarot, you know. So like if you see the swords cards, those correspond to air. So it's like he says like the 4. It's like you have the 4 royal cards of the suit or something. It's like it as that relates. It like kabbalistically, like through the Golden Dawn or the OTO or whatever, the way they have those attributions set up. I was tripping out on that because it makes sense because you go out. And then it's like he's saying it's intellect too. Like that's the sword, that's air, it's the intellect. And so he's like goes out and he sees that tornado coming, and it's just like it puts everything. And it's like we're dealing with. It's the same story as kind of like
Wizard
the ice
of
storm.
Oz.
You guys have ever seen the ice storm, where it's like people are dealing with all of these different personal struggles that are all kind of superficial, but they're everything to them. And then he finds out that he's got like a terminal illness in A Serious Man, and then it's like right after that he sees, and it's all connected to that choice to change the kid's grade or whatever. It's like there's something communicated there, and I was tripping out at the time because I was like, is that the thing with Twister and like the Wizard of Oz in the first place? That it's like that's like kind of the whole point, like they're relating to that because there's 2 schools of Kabbalah. There's the Genesis school, Bereshit, and then there's like the Ezekiel school. And so like the Ari and the later like the with the Reformation and like how like the Jewish mystics would later relate to Kabbalah, it's mostly through the Ezekiel school. So it kind of shifted. Like that's where we get the Simsum. So like, have you ever seen Life of Pi and you see the name of the ship, it's Simsum? Like that's a Kabbalistic term relating to this specific school of Kabbalah. And that's to do with the shattering of the vessels. And so that's why when the ship sinks, it's like that, you know, anyway.
Okay.
Also the villain in Twister, Dr. Jonas Miller, right?
Yeah.
You got this. I mean, well,
Carrie
Alex,
Elwes.
go ahead.
Oh
Yeah.
no, what?
There's a-
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I'm just thinking about this idea. I
gotta think
mean,
about 'em, but-
yeah, no, please. That's kind of where I'm going. But go for it.
Oh well, I really don't know. You should say whatever you were going to say. 'Cause
I mean, just this idea
mine's
of
very
like
specific.
the idea that, well, just because of what we're saying, this idea that the movie Twister is about chasing God or trying to understand God, and he's getting close to like the Mother Nature, right? So it's all the parts of the Sephirot that he's trying to connect, and then there's this antagonist villain who has all of the money, all of the power, none of the understanding, right? So it's like the other side that's trying to make its way to the crown at the same time. So
Right.
yeah, there's this dichotomy that I think I've talked about on this show before in there about where their Dorothy or Dot 3 or whatever system, all their little sensors are spheres. They're circular little guys. But then you see the evil guy has a copy version of Dot or whatever, and they're all cubes, square little sensors, and which is I think this very fundamental like dichotomy between cube versus sphere. And they all, of course, they all drive black cars, like monolith style, like they're all driving the monolith around, you know.
Right. Even in Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's the monolith, but if it's looking at Arthur C. Clarke's original book, it's spheres, right? The original thing was spheres before.
Wow. Yeah. Sentinel. I just don't know if it's like actually described as it might be a sphere. It is called the sphere. It might actually be called the sphere, is it?
Well,
you also have the movie The Sphere.
I mean, let me show you the book cover for Sentinel.
That is basically like grifted directly off of it.
You also have the Millennium Hilton in the shape of the monolith at ground zero, along with the sphere, which was symbolic of the Kabbalah, according to its creator.
Sentinel.
This is the cover of the book. That's
not what the Sentinel. It's a sphere, but that's the spaceship the guy finds. I just don't think that it's described.
Which is still a sphere in 2001, also. But yeah.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's about.
But you know, the original conception of what the monolith was going to be for the film was actually a star tetrahedron, and then it went through various shapes along the way before they landed on the monolith, which I believe, and a lot of people believe, it's meant because they did it that way because it's the screen itself of Cinerama, so you're looking at the measurements of the screen. But originally it was a tetrahedron, and then they went to like triangle, and then they went to, and at one point I think it was probably a sphere.
I've heard it. I've heard it's funny because I've actually like that insight has nestled its way into like Joe Rogan and stuff. I think I heard Joe Rogan say that probably a week or so ago, where he was talking about the monolith in 2001 is synonymous with a movie screen or a cell phone or whatever. Like
apparently, if we're going to give credit to that, not that credit's important, but it was
10 years ahead.
It was who's the guy who did that documentary on Kubrick's use of front screen projection? Jay Widener. So like Jay Widener, Bill actually showed me this, that there was an article that he wrote, I think in 1998 or something like that. So that was before Rob Agger made his film series, but not that it, like I say, not that that's important where it came from or who discovered it, but or had that thought.
On some old news group in the net, whatever.
I'm sure somebody on acid in 1968 fucking got it perfectly. You know, there's like that one guy sitting in the audience. He's like, "Oh, it's the screen."
Well, but one thing we didn't address with Twisters is the new team. So we talked about the cast, but the crew. So Mark L. Smith is the screenwriter, and Chung is the director, and they've done some interesting like action things, but I don't know much about them. I do know that Smith did The Revenant, right, which is that movie that got the Oscar for like raping to death Leonardo DiCaprio with the bear, right? Yeah.
Right. And the Oscar for bear raping goes to.
And it's based on a poem. It's based on a poem. So the idea that this guy could take a poem from 1815 and turn it into, you know, The Revenant, a 3-hour movie, just tells me he could do anything he wants to Twister. The other thing is Overlord, right? Which is an alternate.
That was a pretty good movie.
Pretty good movie. Alternate timeline D-Day kind of thing with this, you know, fighting against. Yeah, I don't. It seems
High Castle.
Kind of a High Castle vibe, right? It's like a better High Castle. And The Midnight Sky, right? The Midnight Sky. Do you guys see that one?
I can't remember.
Kind of a weird one. Looking for habitable planets. 30 years later, 2049, ionizing radiation is destroying the human race. They have to go to Jupiter's habitable moon K23.
Jupiter.
I mean, I'm just saying, there's a lot of symbolism in his script, like it's already. So sounds to me like, and it's a Clooney picture. So
it's Tomorrowland.
So this dude's tapped in. Whoever's making Twister is tapped in. They're going to the same Kabbalah Center. I think it's going to be fine. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be an interesting movie.
I mean, movies just aren't that great these days. Big budget stuff. So I don't really have very high hopes. It'll probably come and go. But if it's some kind of sleeper hit, I'll be happy. But nothing can top the top. Bill Paxton. Okay, yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because they sacrificed Bill Paxton. But not right at that time, though. See, this guy could die in the making of Twister.
I thought
He
they
never got-
sacrificed
God
him
forbid,
all the way
God
back to
forbid.
Weird Science.
Yeah, dude. With the
He's
golem,
just a
where
big pile of
Oh.
shit.
he turns him
Why
into
does-
the
why does
the
writing
goose log.
suck
Yeah,
now?
he was the OG.
Oh,
Chet.
why does writing suck now?
Yeah.
Because there's a political agenda very strongly everywhere, and everybody's too scared to write anything like real. And there's probably a lot of AI stuff going on behind the scenes to generate stuff.
I was
and-
thinking, could like some like less like more edgier stuff start coming out, and
Rest
they
in
could
peace,
just
Bill
say like,
Paxton.
"Oh, I didn't do that. That was the AI. Let's just see what happens though." And then
You mean like
everyone
Mario
can kind of be
Brothers?
absolved of being responsible.
I feel like it's going the other way. Like they probably used Mario Brothers sound. You know, like Alex, your idea that Mario Brothers was like AI driven makes a lot of sense to me because it's just missing
Yeah.
some of the sparkle of humanity. You know, and then you
Yeah,
add that back
it
to
would
Will
it would make
Smith.
sense that that
Maybe.
wouldn't be announced, that they would just do that. Like that would make the most sense. So you're like, if there was a movie you could point to that's just like, is this just an like largely an AI movie where they just kind of fill stuff like that's the one.
Well,
Yeah.
hear me
no
out.
spark.
I think AI would be capable to make you know the infinite conversation that we've seen before. It's got like Werner Herzog and someone debating.
Yeah. Mhm.
Someone could do that for like a Lifetime movie, like an
I've always
infinite
used that.
Lifetime movie that just constantly
Someone.
keeps going and never ends.
Oh, like that Lifetime movie about that woman. Sorry.
Yeah.
Based.
So Zach Galifianakis.
We talked
Well,
about the
I find
hexagram,
that
but
interesting. I mean, going back to Ready Player One, also, there's something that you sent to me about the House of David, and when I watched that, I thought a lot about everything that was powerful and no longer is, and I have no idea about.
you know, wait, Will, you might be the only one who knows about this. Do you guys know about the House of David?
This is new.
So I talked about this with Gum Woo. So some of the audience knows about this, but I don't think you guys have seen this. So this thing is crazy, and I recommend you check out the video if you look up House of David. But also, I think I talked more about it than the video does because I went into it pretty good detail. So basically, there was
had
this
an amusement park.
Yeah, the biggest amusement park in America at the time. 100 million people visited their amusement park. This was a cult called the House of David that believed in the seventh messenger. That was this dude that lived with him and his wife came, and they got a bunch of Australian musicians and vaudeville acts and stuff. And they traveled around America, and they built a baseball team. And their baseball team was the most successful baseball team, but they wouldn't shave because they wanted to have long hair to go to heaven. Like they thought you had to keep your long hair. So they could only play in the non-mainstream leagues, but they played with the Negro leagues, and they were affable. They were some of the best baseball players that there were at the time, and they were completely, you know, they didn't do drugs, they didn't
like
drink, they didn't eat meat.
WWF.
They were vegetarian baseball players that were
They were
celibate.
like the Bushwhackers.
Yeah, and yeah, pretty crazy. So, but then they worked with Al Capone and sold liquor for Al Capone apparently near the end of their time, even though they weren't drinking and they were vegetarians and they didn't have kids. And that's apparently why the whole thing disappeared, was because of their celibacy. So if you run a cult, make sure everybody breeds.
Well, you know who Peter Zion is, don't you? Zahan? Peter Zahan?
Yeah. Oh, that guy.
Zahan. Yeah, that dude. Yeah, that dude. Who basically
Those
says
eyes.
that
He looks like he's lying to a
populations-
cop right now. Sorry.
He said one of the dumbest things.
What are you going to say about
that
it?
populations are dwindling because every time a country is industrialized, their birth rate goes down. So cities, otherwise,
Oh, I've seen this guy
symbolized as
talk.
Babylon,
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
create less population. So if you're celibate, you can't be fruitful and multiply. And in less than 40 years, you have nobody else. So what he talks about is like there's going to be a collapse in China. We're going to lose AI and all of that, basically because of deglobalization, saying that China hasn't had they've had what is called the one-child policy for 40 years, and that's created nobody of working age in China after 40 years. Because in 40-year gaps, if you don't have babies, nobody's there. So if you're a cult that says be celibate, you're going to breed yourself out.
Right. Which is what, okay, so here's the real thing. I think celibacy and perpetuating late childbirth is a meme that's really caused a problem more than anything. And like religions are memes at a deep level, you know. I mean, you could talk about the spiritual side of them, but the action and the response that people have about their spiritual intuition or their ideology, these are memes. So in America, we convince people to wait until they're past childbearing age to consider having kids. Like once you start having gray hairs is when you start thinking about having kids in America, which is kind of crazy. But that's what people used to do if they were really wild and eccentric and high mutation prone. So societal mutation is an interesting thing. We have a lot of apocalyptic, and that just could be like cataclysmic changes into our environment. So people have to mutate in different ways, not just epigenetically, but also in the ways that they sleep during the day and then they work at night. And then a city starts to mutate, and it acts a different way than nature has acted before it. But if that can reproduce, then you have lots and lots of people at that city. And if another place has a problem, because let's say, you know, there's no ozone and people are dying in the day. Like, so in Spain, people sleep in the daytime and they function and they've created a society there that works. In other places, they couldn't sleep during the day and it works. But eventually you have two societies that have reproduction. With the United States, you're building a society that's based on mutation without reproduction, even to the level of transgender and homosexual, you know, society, marriage or whatever. These things don't imply the capacity for reproduction. We're looking forward to that. We're looking towards technologies that will make triple genetic, single parent DNA cloning, all sorts of in vitro care that can lead to people having kids beyond that, which would completely change the course of evolution. But for now, it's been these conservative movements that have demanded you have kids, right? For one reason or another. And they've memed having kids. So they displace rather rapidly mutation. Like mutation shows up, it does its thing. Hipsters exist, but if they don't breed, then very quickly you're replacing that with another conservative generation. And so hippies are replaced with boomers, and hipsters are replaced with conservative. I mean, in Silicon Valley, we're seeing this where the liberal left that don't breed are being and can't work are being replaced with conservative Muslim and Hindu and Chinese people that are that breed. And but the thing is, you look at the birth rates, right? And it's not what people think. And I can't believe I get to do this again. But the Future of American Religion birth rates show who's having more kids, right? And so you look at the statistical numbers, and like it's pretty good for Muslims, right? It's pretty good for Hindus, but Mormons are still beating Muslims.
The whole plan is going to be nothing but
bam. What about that? What about
we're looking at a chart showing the increase and not necessarily how many there are.
I know. I like the idea though. I like the idea. But the point is that in America there's super high likelihood of perpetuation of conservative memes because they have 6-8 kids, something like that as a whole. Wow. If you think that that's something you should start doing at 16 instead of at
it's
30.
Funny because Elon Musk like tweeted something really simple. He just said having children saves the world or some stupid shit like that, and he got attacked for that. But I was like, oh, I know what the fuck he's talking about. Like, if you don't have kids, see what happens is everybody goes towards the city, realizes, well, I need to experience my own happiness. I don't want to pay for kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, kids are expensive. And
right. So are you arguing that it's more in our like when you say the city thing, it's like us clustering together. Whereas, like, if we were more spread out, I mean, you take you'd go on a plane and you just go over like these miles of, and you're like, dude, we are so consolidated everywhere around the world. And it makes sense that we would do that, but
it validates.
If you're out in the open, the more kids you have, they sustain you.
Well, it's also the idea of younger kids, because like they're saying, all right, do this, work for us, and then maybe you'll have enough money that your kids will be better off if you. So it's kind of similar to in the Bible. It's like, well, marry these other uglier brides, and then maybe in 3 or 6 or 9 years you can marry the pretty daughter you wanted to marry. Like you're putting off living your life and doing this thing, and you're not realizing it because and then they're saying, well, don't worry about all that, because you can continue to want to buy razor scooters and TVs and things, and they're continually the consumerism. They're trying to push you into perpetuating that as long as possible so that you just don't have kids. But if you have kids at 16, right, which everyone told me as a kid, they're like, don't do that. That was a big deal. I saw cartoons, I saw movies, I saw Degrassi, and it always told me not to have kids. Spike, in Degrassi, I was like, don't have kids when you're young.
You're talking like Old Testament times. They're like 13 years old having kids.
All the people I know tons of people that from like Scotts Valley or Watsonville and that had kids when they were like 14 to 16, and they're some of the happiest people for God knows how, because their kids were 6 years old. By the time their kids were 6 years old, they were ready to go to college. So the kids were going to kindergarten at the same time they were going to community college, right? And like,
if you have a man who's had 12 kids, he's fucking miserable, but nobody fucks with him, because if they do, they have to answer to 12 kids.
Hey, but that guy who's the head of the Muslim Brotherhood with Malcolm X, he had how many kids? But they weren't seem much of a problem for him because he really didn't pay much attention.
Yeah,
to
well, imagine you have a kid that you're 17, 18 years old, and now your kid's 17, 18 years old. So in other words, you got like a full-grown man and a 40-year-old man. Like, so now you guys can work together in these ways that you couldn't before, because you're both not retired yet, right? So waiting till you're 30, 40 to have kids, I mean, it's dangerous because you don't know if you're going to be able to have kids. And it seems like you can get it out of the way. And so it's weird. Our society pushed this idea really to be experiment and to mutate as much as possible, because probably they think that they can adapt those mutations, because those mutations are for the most part memes, right? So they're like, if anything's useful, it goes from you, we'll just learn it from you.
You will live forever. And I hate to say that, but that's like that's the only reason for gender, is to procreate. Like once
it's pretty weird.
Mutate the gender, then there's no more procreation. And
what do you think about
that?
What do you think about the cloning?
Well, hey, William, what's the function of orgasm? Or
incentive, I guess, but what about cloning? Because
yeah, I mean, it just kind of allows the technocratic bio people to control how it's done.
They made a documentary recently on Netflix talking about the Raelians, and they really tried to push the concept that it was all fake, that they didn't. Yeah, it's worth watching. But I'm convinced
this is paid for by Elon Musk's family. What? Oh, sorry.
Something like that. I'm convinced that they have cloned and have clones. Like, this documentary did not dissuade me in any way from thinking that they didn't succeed.
Oh, they're making fun of it, saying they believe in clones.
They tried to show it in a pretty straight light, but because they don't have any information on it, I think they're kind of egging on the Raelians and Clonaid to say, hey, why don't you release evidence of Eve now at this point in her life? Show that she's healthy, show that she, because Dolly was an unhealthy sheep. How do we know this is a healthy cloned girl? So there's all these questions that people have that haven't been answered. And so they're saying, well, if you don't answer those questions, we should just assume it's all made up. But I mean, the science is there. So there's
we can report her missing and file like an official police report and everything.
That's in the documentary. They did that. So they tried that in Florida, and then they basically said that if this person even exists, it's outside of the jurisdiction of Florida because she's lived her entire life in Israel, if she exists. So there's no way around it.
The old Israeli switcheroo.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, if there are babies being cloned, then this happened at least 20 years ago, then we're living in a very different world already, at least for the elite. And it makes a lot of sense why they're preparing legislation for a world that's not gender run, where they're babies that are
Xena LeVay.
Well, the issue is, like, if somebody wants to say that they're non-binary, It's like that's cool. Like I have no problem with that. I'm a non-dualist, you know. I think that sounds very Vedantic to me. But if you say that you're non-binary and that makes you special because other people are binary, then you set up a new binary. I'm being Captain Obvious here, but you create a binary by saying that you're non-binary if other people are binary, because then that itself is a binary thing. But if you want to say that you're non-binary and that everyone's non-binary and that you don't actually like, I could actually, you know, entertain that. No, but that doesn't work as well, because if you're arguing that gender is separate from sex, that they're two totally different things, then how can they sell you on changing your sex to quote unquote match your gender when they've just said, you know, that's a doublespeak kind of thing, is it not?
Yeah, because they're two different things. That's the thing. So the transhumanist movement, it's kind of funny because like I'm pretty pro transhumanist, but transhumanist movement ought to be using transgender people as a human shield for the political war, the same way that plastic surgeons are, because plastic surgeons latched onto them. They're like, hey, here's a group of people we can teach the world that we can sell them something and we can get even insurance money for this. And the idea is that your pan-psychosocial traits, which, social traits that have been, metasocial traits, we define as, women or men. Those have nothing. I mean, they really have nothing to do with your with your sexual, your chromosomes, right? Your hormones, your testosterone, your epigenetics, and all these things. If you look at women in Africa and how hard they work, if you look at the different roles that people play in different parts of society, like things can be very different for gender roles in terms of what we expect of each other. So that's the thing that they're really selling. They're selling that you can sell the gender roles, and people will be forced to accept your new demands of how you accept your gender roles, like what you want to. I don't want to be, but the problem with that is you're then stereotyping what gender roles are, when really getting down to like genetics and chromosomes, we can change things like that pretty quickly. We're about at the point where you can do that almost safely. You're going to see pretty soon epigenetic, teratogenic adenovirals that will be able to change your chromosomes to increase from XX to XY. And it might even be possible to go the other way around and to go from Y to XX, especially with CRISPR. It might take like a few years of CRISPR, but we're at a point where you're probably able to actually transhumanize. And because of that, the idea that you could go back and forth, or that it wouldn't matter as much, because, the other thing is synthetic sperm and synthetic eggs. They just created synthetic sperm last year, and synthetic eggs are like the teams are racing against each other to complete the project. And I think it's
if that's where they're going with it, and if you're thinking about it, you might want to hold off a second on the hormone therapy and the butchering of your genitals, because the technology is going so rapid. You might end up with something that actually isn't totally messed up.
Yeah, you'll have the Apple Vision Pro of sex change, I think is
that's one of those ones that people who are just all around want to consider themselves tolerant or whatever. It's like if you show them like some photos of what it actually looks like, say changing a female to male or something like that, people, and you see the section of skin missing wherever they took it from to do the thing, and it's like a lot of times you show that to somebody like that, they'll completely change their views in a matter of seconds. They'll be like, oh my god, that's what it is.
I just want to say, I find the conspiracy theory that Taylor Swift is a clone of Xena Shrek to be kind of offensive, because Xena Shrek is way hotter. But other than that, I guess maybe if it's just like Dolly, like it's like an inferior clone, that could be a thing.
Do you think that this came from the Raelians? Do you think that that's a
the Raelians have Clonade, and Clonade with Jeffrey Epstein. So like they really like the biggest cloning company at the time before getting involved with China and Rockefeller lead. Now I think though Korea is the big deal, right? That's where they have all the major cloning going on. Like if you want to get your dog cloned, you go to Korea. and they're saying like there's laws to stop them from doing things in Korea about like, you know, mastodons and things. So they have to do things overseas, but then they're also probably training labs that they're controlling overseas. So it's going to be like islands. It's got to be.
Why do they want to law against mastodons? It would be great.
Well, I feel like that the law invites
waiting.
loopholes the same way that you've got like all the synthetic like THCs. They're just going to change like one molecule on the mastodon and be like, hey, it's technically not mastodon.
Right. Word.
I always like the sync between what's his face, the guy who played Obi-Wan,
Liam Neeson.
Ewan
McGregor. Sorry, that was his teacher. Excuse me.
Because he does that movie, The Island, where he realizes he's a clone.
Yeah,
right.
He's also like Obi-Wan who discovers the plot of the clones.
Right. Dig it.
But I often wonder, like, there's that whole idea that whatever technology we've ever discovered is 100% probability that it already existed. Like, it's really weird. As soon as we got AI, there was that one Asian physicist who was on Joe Rogan. He was talking about, like, well, anybody who's spacefaring would already have AI. It was like, as soon as we had invented AI, we realized that anybody who was more technologically advanced than us would have AI.
Yeah.
So as soon as we are technologically advanced enough to have clones, then it's 100% chance that we're fucking clones.
Well, I mean, the idea of cloning is like, okay, so cloning is, I think I'm having a sex change. Oh yeah. Anyway, there's the idea of cloning is that you're missing the mutation, right? So what makes us useful is that we're able to take two genetic clones or coherencies, and then you can mutate them so that environmental shifts that happen you can prepare for.
Well, it's like okay, the simulation theory. They say if the simulation theory is true, then it's 97% probability that you're a simulation. Because if one simulation has been built, then another simulation has been built. But I feel
even if your simulation,
clones.
Yeah, even if you're okay, so, but like, a clone is just an exact replica of something. So instead of being an exact replica of something, you take half of the data and the other half of the data, and you have kids, right? This is the whole point of the mutation, is so that something that's trying to protect the DNA sequence, which is the XX system, is looking for a viable mutation in the XY, which is prone to mutations. And it's saying, okay, I don't want something too mutated this generation. No, I want something very mutated this generation. No, I want something not that mutated. I want something that's kind of mutated, but I want the egg white, but not the egg yellow. Like, this is how selective genetics works. And over a period of time, we end up with, black butterflies if the forest is burnt down or something like that, right? Like, those are like micro mutations, but it only happens because we're splitting. And if you clone, then you don't have those changes unless you use adenovirals, which can then, so viruses change your DNA.
And you were like, this world is desolate. Let's make this world livable. And you put clones of yourself down there. But you knew that no matter how many clones you put down there, that they would degenerate, just like, I don't know, Michael Keaton in that Multiplicity movie.
Right.
So if a
copy, I feel like it's the other way.
Is it just the copy of a copy makes it retarded?
Right. I dig it. But
can I use that word? It's a legal medical term.
You're literally saying a Weird Al song and pitching it that this is could very well be exactly what it is. With I think I'm a clone now. I think I'm a clone now. It's always two of me just to hang around.
And it's like Ewan McGregor singing it. That's funny.
Every pair of jeans is a hand-me-down.
Dressed as Obi-Wan.
I think that's missing some.
Oh wait, you're right, dude. He also did the American Pie parody of the Phantom Menace. Yeah.
I just gotta say, we need way more Weird Al Yankovic references here.
See,
I do love Weird Al.
The whole idea
he goes to church every Sunday
has to do with the Anunnaki who had sex with human women and created giants. But Ewan McGregor,
right? But that's I'm gonna
Jack the Giant Slayer and Big Fish. Fish, which relates to the whole, there's always a bigger fish that it's all
what we've discovered with Neanderthals now, that we had this kind of like linear view of evolution that's like that old chart where you're like, you go from this and we're looking for the missing link, we're looking for Lucy, whatever, you know. And it's like those are simultaneous like lines that are developing like, and like, for lack of a better word, sorry, but like synchronistically, like they
Right.
existed together. And so like the
Gene
whole
flow.
thing, like I don't care about like Zachariah Sitchin's like his interpretation of the fallen ones, that it's like those who from heaven to earth fell. Like maybe, okay, whatever, but it does seem like we're talking about different hominids. Like these seem like we're like I mean, it's weird to interpret the
It's
biblical
all
that
about
way,
genetics. But the
but
more
yeah,
people that
yeah.
the more children that you have, the more you rule the earth. That's it. I mean, really and truly, that's all like the Bible is basically telling you, saying don't kill your kids, because if you kill your kids, you have no bloodline.
All right. Well, here's where I think you're missing the Koresh Waco connection, because I feel like you should know better, and shame on you.
No, because
You-
all of the kids.
No,
that
no,
were in
no,
there
no.
were his
Here,
kids.
Let him finish with
Yeah.
what he's gonna say.
I was just kidding. So here's the deal. Light is being sent from a source. It could be your star, whatever it is. This data isn't hitting it's hitting lasers, hitting a data, but the star is hitting the saline solution, which is on Earth way faster than anything can travel. It's traveling at the speed of light or whatever that is. So when it's getting here, then it's causing radiation to the saline solution, which is crystal radio kits, and the crystal radio kits are then creating life, right? They're creating ribonucleic acids, which are then becoming DNA, which then are following symmetry patterns and forms from the data line from the laser from the star. So the stars are then seeding life, but when the life evolves, eventually you can visit it, but it takes you so much longer to travel because you're not able to travel at the speed of light if you're traveling in your own body. So it makes way more sense to print bodies that you can then send your data into. So you would just copy yourself in from the computer, right? Send a copy of yourself, which then takes over a body which has been evolved from. It's not just cloning. This is a genetic thing that's following it's following the Prometheus laws, but it's also following the laws of the environment of this place where it's evolved, right? Because the crystal radio kit has to evolve following the conditions of that place. So you'd be building a body specifically for that place. And on that level, you'd also have just like free automatons, because you're not always running these, right? So this is essentially, I think, the idea. It's not that you would be like in a rocket ship going to Earth if you're in.
But I mean,
this
that's Mormon, right?
That's
Like
what's happening with
when we die, we
Andreas.
get our
He's
own
drifting
planet.
further and further into the Mormonism, man. It's
Well, I
like
mean,
this
I
is
mean,
going to
do
be
you
a
not
Mormon
think?
show pretty soon.
Do you think light
I mean,
doesn't
that's
just
Mormon,
travel?
right? I'm not
Just objectively, it could be
bullshitting.
but it could be Wake. Isn't that also Waco? Isn't that also just like Scientology? Isn't that
For
also
sure.
just your third grade Scholastic Book Fair science project? It's all the same. Like at this point, this idea that li-fi sending data, like light as frequency sending data,
Right.
that's not out of the realm of. It's one of those things you said about like if we invent it, they must have it, right?
Right.
So it makes sense. The sun is sending data.
If we have candles,
those radio
they
waves
have
are
lasers, basically.
Yeah.
Like whatever light we can produce, they got more light. And I mean, that's one of the things that like ties into like the Fermi's paradox or whatever, is the fact that we don't see Dyson spheres, which is the Dyson spheres is the idea that if civilization got advanced enough that it would harness the entire light or energy from a sun. I mean, everything that we know as far as technology and knowledge is symbolized with the idea of light.
What do you think about the we talked about the Star of David? What about the Seal of Solomon? Right, like so this idea of 6 versus 7.
That is a Seal of Solomon, but you're talking about septogram, or there's other names for it. But yeah, 7-point star.
Yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be John Dee's star to trap stars. He uses this to trap 6-pointed stars, right?
I would say
well, he has this around the
star.
Yeah, go ahead.
7-star would be God's ordinance. 6-star would be the change of ordinance. So Solomon would probably be more right.
No, Solomon's is the same star. I mean, the seal of Solomon is the Star of David, is the whatever. But the septogram is not a perfect vector metric. So like you can use this to build things to manufacture, but it's not going to have the same like distribution of like compensation of force as a a hexagram is going to have. We've discussed this before.
I mean, yeah, the idea that these different kinds of stars, different kinds of frequencies are being used. I think we need to start looking at stars more as data
frequencies
transmission. Like when we're saying the capacity for stars
is the Sabbath. How frequent is the Sabbath? Is it every 6th day or every 7th day?
There is no 7th day. So like that's the thing about how they treat the day itself. That's why it's like people treat a day of rest, but literally it's twisting around the Sabbath. If you like that, it's
there's two twisters.
yeah, totally.
Oh God.
But I mean, that's the thing, though, is that when you're talking about Twister, what are they doing with Dorothy? They're building a map of what is happening within the vortex. And so that map, like, it's the most direct, like, communication of what Kabbalah is that you could pretty much come up with, because it's showing here's it's like they're treating that the Twister itself is like a natural organism. It's not unlike Pi in a way, where he's looking for the pattern in the stock market. It's like they might not even know what they're looking for. It's just the fact that they're looking and like see where this would go, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I just dropped something in our group chat.
In the
bit of a
Twitter
thing that I can. It's a diagram. It's a time map thing.
Where'd it go? There it is.
That thing. Yeah. So, can I explain this? This is a little bit involved, but so I think it was Brother Berg on Twitter who pointed out that Taylor Swift was born 911 months after the Federal Reserve Act was signed into existence, and he was
Where does Toby Keith fit in all this? My God.
Yeah, good question. Another ritual sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
But to be more specific, she was actually born at 911 months and 21 days, which even adds in the 2001 kind of 2-1 thing. But that's also exactly 666,000 hours, which is even weirder. I just playing around and I found that if you go 666,000 hours after the Federal Reserve Act was born, is 1921. It's a birthday of this woman, Margaret Singer.
Oh, wow.
Who, you might know about her. I don't know that much about her, but she was a psychologist who, deprogrammed Korean War prisoners of war who'd been brainwashed. And so she was an expert in brainwashing. She was like a deprogrammer, essentially. And her name is Singer, right? So Taylor Swift is a singer.
Margaret Singer. She interviewed Charles. She knew Charles Manson. She worked with Charles Manson. Margaret Singer.
Yes, that's right. You're right. So then I do my thing and I find the midpoint between Singer's birth and Taylor Swift's birth, and it's this day, which first of all, it's 420 weeks after the CIA opened. But the thing on there that it says Flight 409 kills 66 people, and that caught my eye because of the 49 thing, because everybody was talking about 409, 49 because of the 49ers and April 9th. There's some other things that happened. But then the most amazing thing to me was that read into Flight 409, and it says that the three aviation disasters, American disasters that happened in the year 1955, all three of them killed 66 people. And Flight 409 was one of them. So each crash, there were 3 crashes, and they each killed 66 people. 66 plus 66 plus 66.
Wow.
And Flight 409 was one of them. So if you kind of extend into the future, the same distance, but that's coming up a week from now, February 20th. So I'm looking at that. I'm thinking there's something might go down in terms of this archetype or whatever. So.
Crazy.
Yeah, so that's what I do in my spare time.
Taylor Swift announces pregnancy.
I mean, in terms of things that have happened on February 20th before, Ponce de Leon set out to find the Fountain of Youth. So there's Florida. Pope Post office is established.
What date is this?
This is February 20th.
Oh, okay.
So on just a general kind of idea.
Yeah,
So like you can look and see like sometimes like things that commemorate that day kind of help. The end of the Uruguayan War, American Civil War, Battle of Otis, the biggest war fought in Florida. So that seems kind of connected to Ponce de Leon.
It'll be coming up on the Ukraine war invasion.
Ooh, the Futurist Manifesto.
Anniversary.
Check that. Paraguayan Anarchy, 1931. World War II. Mercury program. China earthquake opens a volcanic crate. 2 trains collide. 6 people are killed in the Kalamazoo, Michigan. Multiple shooting. I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows?
February 20th.
Yeah, I feel like it always record when we start going in that direction.
The Manifesto of Futurism is pretty interesting, though, right? Like that's kind of cool. Like so, the beginning of the technocratic age, starting with this with this philosophy of futurism, constant urbanism against personal humanity.
So did Taylor Swift do a like encircle salt around the stadium before the game? I heard she had people that did that.
Salt burn.
I know.
Infertility.
Saturn.
You're so right,
Sexual
Will, on that.
ambiguity.
Like when he's standing at the maze,
bloodline,
the labyrinth or whatever. That's like he's got the recreation of it, and he's looking at it, and then it shows the labyrinth outside or whatever. Do you know what was Stanley Kubrick's first production company called?
Speaking of Stanley Kubrick, I thought that was an interesting sync that we made the joke that what's her name again? Gosh,
Ice Spice.
Ice Spice is the reincarnation of Stanley Kubrick that come up with a thing.
Oh yeah, born January 1st, year 2000, and Stanley Kubrick died 666 days before 1101. So yeah.
So it's clearly the welcome back Stanley Kubrick. You know what I mean?
But this is what I wanted to say about Saltburn earlier. Like the whole the Shining.
It looks like they're watching This looks like they're watching the Serbian film right now. You know what I mean? They're just all just like they've never seen anything like it before. But
no,
also
this is a scene in Alien when the alien pops out of the dude's chest.
But also like she is wearing Ice Spice is wearing like the downward pointed cross. I don't think she's Catholic, and you know there's definitely it just feels pretty witchy, right? Like there's like a triple action coven,
especially with Lana there too. They're all convening. It's weird.
Yeah. What were you saying? What were you saying, Will? A second ago?
About Saltburn?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a connection to the. We've been talking about it all night with the bisexual and the aspect of that movie kind of talks about infertility as far as the whole, but so does The Shining because of the whole Playgirl thing. You know how
right.
And we've talked about it earlier with Isaac and Abraham, like the whole idea of killing your children or whatever. Like he destroys that entire bloodline.
I'm sorry I got to do this, but like pop quiz hot shot. What was fucking Stanley Kubrick's first production company called?
Who, me?
Alex, come on.
Mine was Minotaur.
The Minotaur.
Minotaur Productions.
So like when you watch Saltburn at the center of the fucking thing. Yeah.
Right.
Just saying. Okay.
I thought that was also a reference to the child
that's
sacrifice.
where everything ends, but that's where their bloodline ends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the Minotaur is a really important reference because you have to think of the quantum psychology of it, where the king he is every character in the story. So the king is swearing off his beast side by making this monster, which he's also created his like his mythological side to make this labyrinth, and his receptive side, his wife, the queen, dresses up as a monster with the help of the same part of him that made the labyrinth to hide it in the first place, so that it could sleep with the beast side of him. I mean, there's all of these aspects to it. If you have to imagine the whole story where you are a schizophrenic and every character is part of your head and you're the maze.
Right. Also that he inherits the kingdom, right? So like in
Yeah.
Saltburn,
Right.
But he's
like, that's the whole
impotent.
point. And also that he's naked at the end. There's a whole like Aiden thing going on because he's like basically like he's gotten it all, but now he's just by himself. So it's
Right.
like
There's no
back
mate.
to yeah.
See, that's what an interesting. I think I found out there's a weird part in the middle of the FBI files for Waco where David Koresh reads Job 41, where he talks about the Leviathan.
Yeah.
I thought about that a lot because he describes every detail of the Leviathan and he calls it his pet. But the Leviathan doesn't have a mate. There's this whole idea like the Leviathan is beyond breeding, like it's too dangerous to breed, so to
You don't think
speak.
it's a hermaphrodite like Jabba the Hutt? You know, like Jabba the Hutt's a slug.
No, there's two Leviathan. I have to look up something. I'll be back.
Yeah, but do they breed or do they like, you know?
There's a whole, they all have to do with prophecy, and I know that they don't necessarily mean that there's an actual Leviathan. Yeah, but it's Jabba the Hutt. I mean, it is.
Jabba the Hutt's the
It
way
is,
underrated
because
character.
I found out. Okay, we're talking about Ewan McGregor earlier. We were talking about.
Oh, did they undo it? Is that no longer canon? Oh, it sucks.
Okay, so in
Just
Clash
sweating,
of the
man.
Titans, the king is set forth by the gods to kill his daughter, so he chains her because of the oracle, but it has to do with prophecy. Like
oh,
the
in Slash of the Titans?
idea of the Leviathan back, it all has to do with prophecy. It all has to do with oracles.
Can I share something with you that my rabbi wrote on Leviathan? So he said,
Yes, please.
he said the Leviathan is the absolute expression of matter. Nothing else is so densely physical. It's taught in Perk de Rabbi Eliezer that the whole world is supported on the fins of Leviathan. This is repeated in Zohar. He eats the sparks of light that have fallen from the shattered Sephirot into the Nile, one of the Edenic boundaries where odds and ends wash down, polluting the river. There are two great sea serpents initially. The female is removed to the upper worlds. Our Shimon begins by saying that if they had remained together, they would have destroyed the world, i.e. crushed the light out of everything. But as he goes on, he suggests that creation begins to organize out of chaos, tohu, bohu, after her removal. So maybe we can say that her absence ensures the opacity of matter in the person of the remaining Leviathan, without any transforming possibility of union that mirrors the upper worlds. The fact of the great serpent being solitary means we can't see spirit and matter, that the physical appears totally separate from any transcendent operation. All this allows the world to move along within the illusion of separation and finality, which wouldn't have been possible in the presence of the female Leviathan. So yeah, pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, something that Will had said earlier that kind of reminded me of that is this idea of like the world, that the prophecies, the seals are just movie posters, right? So we're creating those kind of symbols for the anticipation before people see it and realize it themselves. And a big part of it is the pulp, because we're supposed to imagine the pulp and it's supposed to contribute all of our imagination based on our experiences and our perceptions in order to build that up every time. Slashed versus the Titans. I don't know.
Hey, you've got
Koresh is pretty interesting.
In
the monster.
Oh,
yeah. That's what I was going to say. The monster in Clash of the Titans, if you look up the Hebrew name, means big fish. It's basically the Leviathan.
Which comment, Alex? Oh, hold on.
I think you do, Melissa.
I don't know how to look at that.
From Bill on X.
Here, just read it. What's it say?
Oh, okay, I'll do it. So yeah, Piano Gigger said a lot of what Alex says speaks on aligns with the start of 2017 and the new astrological alignment that started then. And I wanted to comment on that and say that I use Kubrick's lifespan as like a constant a lot. It's a K span, so-called. And it just so happens that when you apply that span to the birthday of Aleister Crowley, and actually two of them, if you do two K spans ahead of Aleister Crowley, it's January 1st, 2017. which was the start of 2017 and all of the stuff that followed like that. So I always thought that was pretty interesting. And I don't know about the astrological alignment, but that would be interesting to hear about. Case bands.
William also says
case band of Trump was his first week in office, so it works. It's
wow. Really... Yeah, totally.
Will sent a bunch of cool things. Will sent the topography of time, which is this map here. Which I guess energy flows in here, and then there's an equator to the topology of time.
It's like a double torus kind of illustration in a way.
And he also says, does the movie Island connect? Yes, we talked about that. Okay, that's cool. Is known in modern physics the 4 dimensions of space of which time is an aspect is in the shape of a hypersphere. This hypersphere appears similar to the shape of a donut or a bagel. Okay, that's like the donut Earth.
This is Stan Tenen did a good job of relaying all of that. Yeah,
pretty sweet. What about King Herod? You guys have any thoughts on King Herod?
Yeah, I mean, he is so gay in Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, that is. You heard how King Herod died was that he killed and embalmed his wife and turned her into a doll, like a sex doll, and then he got gangrene and it spread and he died from that. Is this in the Gomorrah?
That's one of the apocryphal stories that I was told in school that I tend to believe, just because it's a good one.
That's not against any of the 10 Commandments, is it?
Dude, some of this stuff, I believe it's the Gomorrah that talks about fucking Josephus Flavius, just like, oh, that's so harsh. The ways he dies, they have different versions of how he died, and it's really hardcore. They explain that they're like, okay, there was a row of people who had been captured by the Romans, and they're standing there, and they go through person by person, and they ask them to bow before Caesar, and they refuse. And Josephus arranged it so that he would be at the very end, so everybody gets killed one after the other, and then they get to Josephus, and then he bows before Caesar, and then that's the explanation for how he came to be the only person we really have to have written the history of what happened in Judea 2,000 years ago.
This one's pretty far back, but it's funny with the delay. I can say retard because it's all about timing. Good one, Stoic.
Comedy is that what we're talking about? We're talking about comedy is all about timing.
No, I think also just the fact that he was slow to respond that joke, considering that we had said that a long time ago. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong. The Bikini Truther, but yes, comedy is all about timing. Bikini Truthers, thank you for your super sticker, because that
best kind of truther.
I do like Bikini Truther. She's great. And then Recent Tartarian asked us to talk a bit more about the House of David and Walt Disney's frequent visits. I had to ask again because she asked that. And I was like, "What?"
I didn't even catch that. That House of David is Hode, like the Sephra.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
That's significant too. Oh wow.
It is interesting that the House of David, which we talked about a second ago briefly, and had the baseball team, and they had the biggest amusement park in America because people were traveling near Michigan and they needed something to distract people from finding out how weird they were. And this was a way better thing, was to have a community park or whatever. But they had these guys were engineers and inventors and things like that. So they had tiny trains that they had built, and they reverse engineered the trains. I guess what they did was Walt Disney used to go, and he thought it was really cool. And he bought one and he reverse engineered it. And so the Walt Disneyland trains are essentially stolen or lifted from the House of David commune, which is pretty interesting. So Walt Disney got a lot of his ideas from the House of David, which is pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Who did you say? Who were you saying earlier connected to them later? It was someone I was surprised about. Oh God. Oh, Al Capone. I didn't.
Oh yeah. Because they were brewers, and so all these guys came, but they weren't supposed to drink or anything. So they would brew and then they would sell booze, and the train, I guess Al Capone would come and lift it and bring it to the rest of America and give them money. So they were really into business and everything and making lots and lots of money. They had hundreds of millions of dollars, or at least $30-40 million when the guy died. and they were in the and people were trying to break up the commune because they didn't want this giant community to fall into the hands of, you know, they wanted it to fall into their own hands, unfortunately. But yeah, it was apparently one of the coolest and most like prolific cults in America. Everyone knew about it because everyone loved baseball. You know, baseball is such a crazy thing. I know it's like football season, but we kind of already talked a bit about Super Bowl and the witchcraft. I feel like baseball is the most American, the most Masonic sport, like the most witchcrafty sport.
Sure.
Well, it's clear that since they play on, you know, the diamond is the square and compass, obviously, it's so clear. And then it appears out of nowhere at the end of Inception, where they're like playing baseball outside of Saturn, like on an upside down toroid, basically cylinder that they're living on. Yeah, baseball is kind of.
I don't remember
Yeah.
that. I believe you.
Yeah, it's in there. Not Inception. I'm sorry, Interstellar.
Interstellar. Okay.
Interstellar.
Yeah. Phew.
They all run together. I know, but
that's pretty crazy.
Baseball.
What do you think the deal is? Because also football is so mainstream and anyone can watch it. Baseball is the American pastime, and yet it feels esoteric because people don't care about it or something. But like, it's just not as. It's like it feels like it decides more and is heard about less.
Yeah. It's not as exciting to watch as more popular stuff, but it's definitely like the most esoteric with the whole. Because it even connects to the moon landing, I think, because basically the at bat is the moonshot, where the ball is the simile of the moon, and you know, the arc of the ball is the journey there, or the parabola, and it's though that's reflected in the amount of stitches on the ball, where there's 108 stitches. You'll see that occasionally referenced. There's 108 stitches, which is I believe that's the radius of the moon, 108,000 kilometers. That's how it fits in that way. But it's along those lines. So I think that's what's going on anyway. Maybe I'm wrong.
There's 108 emotions in Buddhism that the initiate has to basically integrate. And that it's so strange the way that like Buddhist artifacts, like old Buddhist artifacts, like it'll have like Buddha in the center, and then it'll have these 108 different like formations that surround him, and they almost look like little like representations of frequency or something. You don't sound like a crystal hippie, but yeah, there's
beads on the rosary too.
Right, 108 beads on the rosary. Totally, and a mala. If you wear a mala with a guru bead, that's also 108 beads. It's interesting that the Indian and the Catholic religious beads would have the same number like that. It's freaking, yeah.
Thank you, Stoic, for another $9.99 saying because it's a mechanical. I think so. The word retarded is a mechanical term. Conflating it, I think you like medical term. Conflating it with a handicap is absurd. Although, yeah, I guess we are kind of mechanical, so I'll give you that one. Great Heathen Army. What do you guys think about Excalibur? Recently, there's this idea that there's, you know, kind of a destined king of the future because democracy can't keep working. And now, you know, there's cancer for King Charles. Do you think that we're headed towards some sort of monarchy? Do you think we're going to see
God Emperor Trump? What part don't you understand out of those three words?
I mean, unless I think if it's his son, right? Like, because the son could be a pretty like Barron Trump could be pretty like he's young, but
I think he's going to be our last president, Barron Trump. I've been saying that for years.
Aren't we like kind of crazy to be trying to push for another old person if we've already pushed like against one old person? Like, it seems like old isn't the way.
I don't like pushing old people.
Can we talk about Trump as time traveler though? For real?
Yeah,
real?
Sure.
Yeah.
Barron
Do
Trump.
It.
No, wait. You just put the camera on me. But look up Barron Trump time traveler.
Oh,
I don't even know.
I'm
if
gonna.
I remember. David, I know what you were referencing, David.
Yeah, you're talking about the books that are in the Library of Congress of the 1900, The Last President, and Barron Trump's Adventures Underground or something like that. But written by the same guy. It's the fact that this is the thing. Like, people were tripping out on this Baron Trump Adventures Underground. But the thing is that it says that it's the same author. If you read The Last President, oh my God, dude, the Wall
White House
Street
falls
thing.
down.
Woo.
Fifth Street,
Wow.
right? It's actually it doesn't call it Trump Tower. It just says that it's happening at the address of Trump's Tower, which
was a historical building that he had removed in order to build the Trump Tower, right?
In a tower, right? And it's in a tower because at that
like
point,
he read it and was like, "That's what we're gonna do."
I mean, it's pretty crazy, you gotta admit, but like the idea of Baron Trump also that it's isn't Baron spelled with two
yeah, it's spelled differently, slightly differently.
But he's a brat. He's like he's raised rich is like the main story of Baron Trump.
What do you gotta give people?
But
what do you
Donald
gotta
Trump
give
is.
What did you want? You want him to be?
from
Did you want him to be? You wanted him to be raised on Skid Row? Is that going to connect him to?
No,
reality?
I mean the character in the story as well as the kid. Like there's a relationship between the two.
You gotta sympathize with someone whose dad is Donald Trump in some.
You got
until they prove it wrong.
You gotta sympathize with anybody who's not part of the real world. I think the real world is the Orwellian real world.
Oh, dude, his fucking paradigm that he exists within. My God, who's he gonna grow up to be? It's gonna be fascinating to watch. But yeah, no, I mean,
he's gonna grow up to be a tiger shark,
especially with all this mythological like stuff around, like Ingersoll Lockwood setting it up really for some kind of
war is peace.
Caesar
freedom is
thing.
slavery. Ignorance is strength. The real world is a lie. That's the most important part. They just left.
When's the last time you guys watched Richie Rich with Macaulay Culkin?
Oh, recently.
I've been meaning.
Yeah. Dude, Donald is so Richie Rich in that movie. Like that's like it's there's a lot of shit in there. Yeah, the whole thing about them wanting to put put him up in Mount Rushmore and stuff. Like the whole thing culminates in Mount Rushmore. So it's like this, and his relationship with the president throughout the movie, like he's always dealing with the president. His father is. So it's just like I don't know. It's got this whole political angle.
Well, it's a fake Mount Rushmore. It's
also heavy duty emphasis on baseball in this movie. Richie Rich.
Oh, really?
Rushmore begins and ends with an R because the E is silent.
Okay.
There you go.
Double R.
It's Richie Rich. So okay.
Is there a sequel to
Trump
that coming
also appears in Home Alone 2 with Macaulay Culkin.
Yes.
It's like there's a little bit of prophecy involved because he goes up and he's like asking him about the World Trade Center, if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, Macaulay Culkin, somebody might want to fact
Culkin and Trump.
Right.
Boom.
Totally.
Rockefeller Center.
So somebody might want to fact check me on this, but I'm just like, what was I going to say? Yeah, I'll get back to it. Talk.
Donald Trump also shows up in the movie The Pickle. With Danny Aiello.
Right.
So he just appears a lot in weird.
What I wanted to say is that Macaulay Culkin was, as far as I know, he was like the most paid. He's the highest paid actor for like a very brief window after Home Alone because he's just like such a cute kid and everybody loved him. And then at that time, he got paid so much to be in The Good Son with Elijah Wood.
Right.
And the movie, it was part of it is that it kind of flopped compared to what was projected, but it was also that like Elijah Wood was the good son, and people weren't like ready to look at Macaulay Culkin as like an evil character or whatever. And then because they had imbued him like with the kid who like puts on the the shaving lotion and screams,
But also, I think they wanted to destroy like high paid actors, and it was a slow process because right after that, the highest paid actor was Jim Carrey for The Cable Guy.
Right.
And he got like
Jim Carrey became the highest paid actor.
$25-30 million from that for the worst movie, and it was Ben Stiller got to direct it. They like got Ben Stiller to direct it, or was it Judd Apatow who wanted to write it?
Ben Stiller.
Like the worst. Ben Stiller.
It's not good. It's great.
Dude, everyone puts down Cable Guy, including Siskel and Ebert. I like that movie.
I try.
It's really good. It holds up. It's like almost Videodrome-ish.
I wish to God that the original version was supposed to be Chris Farley. Chris Farley was going to be the Cable Guy.
There's an esoteric thing with that too.
That would have been good too.
Where Jack Black
Right.
as
As his
the
friend.
Apollo child or whatever. His mom was an Apollo scientist,
Mhm.
and he was born right after the Apollo moon landings, basically, and she was pregnant with him. And so in the Cable Guy, he uses
Jack Black's mother is an alien. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Isn't his
Yeah,
address?
Black-
Isn't his apartment 42?
420.
Dude, do you notice how like men make like phallic rockets and women make like big bosomed orbitals? Look at that satellite right there.
Wow, yeah.
I'm not missing the gestalt. Keep going.
So there's just the scene in
two eggs there, sir.
The basketball scene where he uses Jack Black's back. He jumps off of it. He like launches himself off his back like Michael Jordan, and he breaks the backboard. At the end of the basketball game. So there's this sort of
because the
launching.
apartment in Cable Guy is like 420, I think.
Yeah.
So there's a good like connection between Jack Black there. And there's Jack Black, of course, is like connected to a lot of beast symbolism. But
yeah, he's the
weird
he's
thing
like
about
the good
Cable
guy.
Guy is it connects to Batman Returns, where he's like pooling everybody's like brain waves into his head.
Oh, Batman Forever.
And
Batman
enemy
show
and
all of
enemy
that.
of the state. Jack Black's an enemy of the state as the
Right.
hacker kid who's spying on Will Smith the whole time
That's
and
good. I
putting
haven't
hacker
seen that.
devices
That's
in
good.
him. Dude,
And
it's
he's also in King Kong, which is another like
beast.
moon sort of.
But
thing.
they're making a movie.
what about the rollerblades movie,
that
dude?
appears in Gulliver's Travels too. He's basically King Kong in Gulliver's Travels, and he like replays Star Wars and all these other movies and makes it look like it's his life, which
Apollo
is exactly
10
what he's
and a
doing
half?
in King Kong. So there's this
Airborne?
whole Truman Show Cable. There's a reason why Black is in Cable Guy
Directed by
because it
Rob
revolves
Bowman.
around that exact same symbolism.
Sorry, we're talking over each other. What was
Dude,
I just going
what's
to say? Oh, Apollo 10 and a half. This is a Richard Linklater, where Jack Black voices the kid who. There's a kid named Stan, and they employ him to work. NASA employs the kid named Stan to work on going to the moon, and Jack Black is the narrator, I think. And I mean, I haven't actually watched this yet, but
it's so boring. I tried really hard, but now I really want to watch it.
What? I liked it.
I didn't get the context that it was Jack Black when I was first watching. I'm like, okay, so here's this is like it's like watching a Russian movie in Russia in the 70s. It's like it lacks the irony. It lacks the irony necessary.
No, I don't know about that. It's about how uptight people are today and how fucking the way people used to be treat like, the way you live your life, like it was just, I don't know, man. I liked it.
You love every woke movie though, but yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'll try one more time.
Do I? I'm gonna reflect
The Cable
on that.
Guy also has I love the overarching narrative in the Cable Guy of on the television that's playing out. It's like an O.J. Simpson style murder trial where
those two brothers,
Sam and Stan Sweet.
Yes.
And it's Ben Stiller.
Who are the Menendez brothers? That's what they're parodying.
And that plays out through the whole movie, and it's
that's actually pretty funny.
It's actually
I can see what he was trying to do.
No,
and there's also kind of a time travel element too, with the whole back in time, medieval times thing where they go to the show and they become part of the show and try to kill each other and.
But yeah, there's some merit to that because even in the medieval show, they're like referencing like old parodies of TV shows like Star Trek and whatever. They're like traveling through time as they're doing that.
Which is the same thing that Jim Carrey does in like one of the first scenes in Ace Ventura, where he's like, he's in the pool and he goes, "We've traveled back in time to save an
Star Trek
civilization."
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
that's like his whole gig, right? Is parodying pop culture, like all of his.
Yeah, but it's not just pop culture parody in that moment.
He became popular off of like Clint Eastwood impression.
He's saying he's a spaceman in that one. All right, well here's that song.
He's the Rubber Face. Is the first movie that he came out with.
Not that one.
It's kind of boring, but
This is the one earlier. Will was listening to
Like
this.
Diana Ross or something. It's almost like the Supremes, but it sounds like something that existed that you've never heard before. That's what's so weird about it.
This is Mormon music, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Thomas, where you been at this whole episode, man? We haven't heard from
All
you
right, well-
very much.
Wait, me? Who? No, Alex?
Thomas.
Paranoid American.
Thomas. Wait, I was going to say, though, really quickly, the reason I played that song was because of Will's point that it sounds like we are listening to music from another dimension. But okay, now
Right.
Thomas, go.
Yeah. I
I-
have this idea. Because
Ha,
there was
look it up,
one
Thomas.
time where I was like, we were all goofy off of like shrooms or something. And I like did this
I
Dragon
wasn't
Ball
there.
Z thing and the music changed. It was Credence. So it was like a track that was like years old and nobody had noticed or everyone noticed that as soon as I like did this dance, the music changed. And everybody was like, well, I never noticed that before, but it was always there afterwards. So I always had this idea of writing a story about an individual who switches timelines, but can always tell like what neighborhood of timelines he is by the music that's on the radio. Like if it's different than how he remembers growing up or whatever. But that's what that reminds me of, because now you have the ability to change the music. Well, see, that's the thing. Like in Back to the Future, what Marty does is change the music. He goes back
Right.
and he plays rock and roll or whatever.
Right.
And the original version, he was supposed to ruin rock and roll for people. And then when he gets Back to the Future, rock and roll is not a thing. And Strictly Ballroom is as big as rock and roll is. It's the only thing going on. That was the way that it was supposed to be originally.
Huh.
What was the movie where they go back in time and they rap as King Arthur? Was it Martin?
Yeah,
Martin
Black
Lawrence
Knight.
or Black Knight?
Black Knight or the
There was a white version
Confederate
too. Where there's
soldier
like a
and
white
King
kid that
Arthur.
does
Well,
the same
Black
thing.
Knight's based on Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court,
Connecticut Yankee.
which
I'm
is
sorry.
also
The
a
Confederate
book by
soldier
Mark-
is in John Carter. My bad.
Yeah, which is way cooler, by the way. But Mark
the
Twain's
same
Connecticut
thing.
Yankee is redeemed by Bing Crosby's character. If you've watched the Bing Crosby's Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, it's pretty based. But did you want to let Thomas go now? Is it Thomas?
Oh, just time traveling music. What was the other movie too about the Beatles where the guy
Yeah,
existed
it's his
in a
head.
Yesterday.
dimension where Beatles didn't exist and he starts
Yep.
writing all the Beatles songs?
Yesterday.
I wish
Yeah.
that thing actually like played out to its logical conclusion and didn't just kind of turn into like
No, that movie was like such wasted potential. Like the premise of it, I was like, this could have been good, but it wasn't very good.
Well, what did you want
I
to
find this
happen?
fascinating though.
Well, let's imagine we made the movie. Well, how would you have made Yesterday? A guy wakes up on the ground with his teeth missing, and now he knows every Beatles song in a world that's never heard the Beatles. Go.
You weaponize Beatles music. You basically start it from the ground up as this is going to be used to change, the mind of a nation, completely start a revolution. But
That's
You know,
what
the
his producer lady is trying to do that.
The
I
implication of all
think she was
this
on the
is
right path. They just got distracted.
Yeah. Well, Josie and the Pussycats already exist. There already is that movie, right?
Well, and Gem and the Holograms, if you want to say that, where they literally weaponize music.
Yeah, the movie didn't quite do it for me.
Well, we're talking
the
about
let me just
filmation part
say
of
this.
it.
The implication of the Beatles Yesterday time travel thing is that the Beatles were time travelers and their music
Right.
was from the future, which kind of explains a lot, actually, as far as how it's power.
I felt like that was the like subliminal communication of why they were gone. Was it like they had it and then it's like you have like an alternate timeline or whatever because they were on an alternate timeline.
Mhm. It would be
So I
a
don't know.
definite man in the high castle, like
Yeah,
Everything
well, it's got
is
crazy
rock,
implications because of American Pie. So, like, the song "American Pie" is so much just about the British invasion and how we had a movement going in the United States and how it was basically co-opted by the English, but then they didn't follow through with what we were looking to them to do. We were like, okay, you guys lead it, and it was like kind of like a shifting of responsibility or whatever. And the tragedy of that is like what American Pie is about. If you listen to that song, it's like every single example practically of where it ends up going is it's talking about the Rolling Stones with Altamont. And it's basically like when the players tried to take the field, the marching band refused to yield. The marching band is Sergeant Pepper. And it's like, and who are the players? We're the players. So it's like, and I think what it's talking about is like in the White Album, how it ends with this fucking lullaby, where you're like, here's like the zenith of what's supposed to be a revolution, and then you're telling everybody to go to sleep. Like, it was just this weird. It's like, and they go through the whole of history of American music with that album, and then they end it like that. It's very strange. It's like a confusion causing thing. Like that American Pie is like, we got confused. Like we were on a trajectory, and then we were like, there was like these figureheads, and like the way that they communicated through the whole thing from Bob Dylan, like what Bob Dylan represented, and then all of a sudden, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm having a lot of thoughts right now. Earlier, I had a whole conversation with a friend of Philip K. Dick about the nature of symbolism and like the dangers of sync, so to speak.
You talking to Tessa? Or are you talking to somebody else?
No, I'm talking to an individual whose name is David Gill. He's supposed to be like basically a proclaimed Philip K. Dick expert, but he's also professor of symbolism. So I was like, let me explain synchromysticism to you. And
Cool.
he had a real issue with it, especially because he was like, well, what you're talking about is a lot like how Manson saw the Beatles helter skelter, so to speak. He saw that there was like a sync, that there was going to be a race war. If you can consider that a sync, then does that send up a red flag? Because Manson was a psychopath. And I had to think up an argument for that, because that's a good point. But it's also a good point of how like the Beatles have so much sync around them.
Oh, absolutely.
Can we assume that it's like sort of a node, like if there is a multiverse, just for the sake of sci-fi, perhaps the Beatles appear in multiple multiverses. And so that's why there's such sync that surrounds them, involving their deaths, and
it's off the charts. It's out of control.
It's off the charts. It's out of control.
Absolutely.
And even I was like, I can't deny the fact of what you're saying this. Like, I can't, because even like chapter 27, the story about Mark David Chapman killing.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that happens in that particular pop culture reference is that David like realizes a sync, and that convinces him to shoot Lennon.
Yeah, that's how they present it, with Lindsay Lohan, no less, being the girl in the red dress, right?
Which creates a whole nother like MK Ultra filter to that whole thing.
Totally.
She's in Bobby. It's really weird because Bobby and Lennon are connected through conspiracy theories about MK Ultra, but Lindsay Lohan, who is connected conspiracies about MK Ultra, appears in both movies.
Right.
And there's like Sirhan says that he was like influenced by a girl in a polka dotted dress, which would basically be Lindsay Lohan and Bobby. But also like Freaky Friday, that's the whole thing, is they're like wearing polka dot dresses when they switch bodies. And the whole thing about MK Ultra and Freaky Friday.
I love polka dots. Polka dots are great.
You know where Robert Kennedy, what his next location was going to be before he got shot? Where he was going after that?
No.
He was going to have dinner with Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski because Rosemary's Baby came out, I think something like 8 days later or something like that.
Yeah, that's basically I broke down in as few as words as possible. I broke down the whole relationship, but Lennon's death, the Dakotas, Rosemary's Baby, with Mia Farrow, Prudence Farrow, and and Dear Prudence. And that's like the only words I use to send him that. Like the way to explain sync, especially to individuals who are also nerds like yourself, is just kind of give them nodes and let them connect the dots themselves.
That was the agreement when Bill asked me to do Always Record. Was I said I don't want to do what I'm seeing elsewhere, where people have a conclusions that they start with and then try to argue and back up those conclusions. I was like, if I'm going to participate in a podcast, I would just like to, like what you call nodes. Like I was like, I want the information to just stack upon itself, or we don't even have to take an ultimate position on what all of this implies or means, because at a certain point it just kind of speaks for itself.
There's a saturation point of individuals who are looking at the same stuff and agree that it's there. You like your interpret. See, everybody was like, well, that's your interpretation of this. It's like, no, that's what the fuck happened.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
and when you say those things
there, you can't argue with the words that are said.
Right. Totally. It's like if you say that Stanley Kubrick died 666 days before January 1st, 2001, and 666 days after a computer beat a chess master with Big Blue, which was admittedly modeled after the monolith from 2001 in shape, built by IBM, which is each one letter removed from HAL. And so you're like, you just say that, and then people will take it that you're saying that this means this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean nothing. I'm just telling you a fact. And so like that's like people get triggered by it sometimes, depending on who you're talking to.
It's a very clever rhetorical device, right? To say those things, to like just leave things out on the table, and then you just be like, "Hey, I'm not saying nothing. I'm just leaving that on the table."
Yeah, what are you gonna do with it?
It's kind of a weasel thing that it can be used as like a weasel application of kind of rhetoric, like a weaponized rhetoric.
Right. Well, people do that. They're like, what are you implying? But they'll decide for you what it is that you're implying when you say something. Like that comes up with like Vax stuff. You'll be like, you'll state something that's just, provable or known or whatever. And they'll be like, oh, so they'll decide for you what it is that you're trying to say. And that can be really frustrating.
Imply things like sync implies certain ideas and certain concepts. And everybody challenges you because they're like, well, that's fucking crazy. You're an idiot. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the same time, you're like, no, wait, that shit's there. Like, I don't give a fuck how you're interpreting it, because obviously the way that you're interpreting it creates denial right away because of what it implies. But you can't denounce something because of what it implies. You have to like search out the facts of what it actually means. And I think that's why like people are scared of a lot of what this means.
Right. Well, you were talking about Helter Skelter, and that's like there's a book that just came out recently, apparently written by Susan Atkins, called like the Helter Skelter myth. I'm interested in what she has to say, even though I don't trust her, but that's not the point. I don't trust her any less than I trust the prosecution's book, Helter Skelter, that, obviously has, questionable things throughout, or what are we looking at?
Oh, this one Will sent from
I sent this.
Cryptozoology's Alex. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this just follows up on what I was saying earlier about K-span, Crowley, 2 K-spans of January 1st, 2017. And I kind of just forgot this, but it's really huge, actually, which is the 1 K-span into Crowley's life is the day that Roman Palansky was 666 weeks old. And I just find that to be fucking impossible, really.
Dude, is this a hot tub time machine?
Yeah.
With considering Polanski and Jack Nicholson's hot tub?
Oh, brutal.
Yeah. There's something about that. Like, that incident seems to be.
We could rewrite every movie to be so much better. Well, that could be such a cool movie.
I just noticed that
in there with him.
Cold plunge time machine. Oh no, yeah.
I tried to look up the movies that came out on the day of the hot tub incident. And there's actually 2 of them which premiered, one in Germany and one in Italy. Both of them are basically about Satanism and satanic cults. One's called Alucarda, Daughter of the Dark, I think, and the other one, I don't remember the other one's name. Oh, maybe it was it's like Letters from a Portuguese Nun or something. It's like this messed up. There's Alucarda. I watched this last night. And so this was released or premiered the day Palansky raped that girl in the hot tub.
Samantha Geimer.
Samantha Geimer, the girl. And
the girl. Well, that's the name of her book.
This is Alucarda, which is a movie about the girl. It's a girl that's like possessed by the devil.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, did you know that those proceedings?
Alucarda.
When you
go to a restaurant,
but it's not
order
related.
something a la carte.
Oh man, what was I just about to say? The proceedings of the court proceedings for Palansky, those are actually filmed. Like I've watched the judge literally, like, it's insane. Like at one point, before he makes his call to send him to a facility to determine whether or not he's depraved or whatever, and he was like, we're not going to do what we would normally do. It was like an exceptional deal. So he like sends him here and they're like, we're going to determine if you're well or not. And if they say, I'm so confident that you're fucked up that if you go in there, when you go in there and they do, I think it's like 3 months or something, and then they determine that you're okay, I'll just release you. But then he changed his mind when it actually happened. But what's insane is that the judge actually brings up his films and goes through and says, I've noticed that you have a water theme throughout your movies. Because like his first movie was Knife in the Water. And then he's looking at like that scene in Rosemary's Baby where she's at the ocean when the impregnation scene and stuff, and how there's all these references to water. And the judge brings that up and he's like, I find that really odd that, you have this water incident in the hot tub. And it's like, and is that like, so it's literally the judge was talking about Palansky film Synchronicity. And then he's saying, he's making an argument that this is like an indicator of guilt in this way. And it's like, yeah, right. he's guilty. Like her book is great. If you want to read a good book, read Samantha Geimer's The Girl. It's incredible for perspective on if you're interested in all.
Does not imply guilt.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Like say it might respond to hidden things, but it does not necessarily, like, you can't use it in a court of law. Here's the interesting thing. This is why I was talking to that individual, David Gill, who was like an expert at Philip K. Dick, because I was trying to convince him that basically David Koresh, no matter if you believe what he says or not, like confirms sync. Because if David Koresh talks about spacemen, then the actor who plays David Koresh and also plays John Carter has more of a connotation to David Koresh and John Carter than he does in Waco. So
right, I gotcha.
It implies that secrets are revealed through sync. No matter what the truth of the matter is, it reveals a secret narrative, shall we say.
Sure. There's a way things are going to go down.
Well, it's secret, but hidden.
Like, I feel we can extrapolate that hidden narratives. So wherever fiction comes from is where the suppressed knowledge of the true narrative is hidden, so to speak.
Well said. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
So anytime somebody tries to pull up an idea that nobody's ever thought of, all they're really doing is drawing from the reservoir of where all the secrets are kept.
Right. It's like Jung's collective unconscious relates directly to sync, and that's a key point.
Right.
Right. And then what my rabbi would argue about sync is he's like, you could find the same thing that you're seeing in a leaf. If you were to look closely and deeply enough at a leaf, but you're looking at it in media. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that because there's a way that you can kind of record that, because our goings on are supposed to be somehow separate. And I would say that they're not separate from the natural dynamics of nature, but they are distinct. And so we're kind of like, we're working with something that we're emanating from, but we're like kind of like mirroring it back in a kind of a distorted way, with what it is that we build, which includes our fiction and it includes our media, and even our politics. Like, it's crazy. Like, if you look at this just like as a story, like, it reminds me of like the Arthurian legends of like shit that's happening right now. It's like you got a guy running for president whose father was assassinated on the campaign trail, being denied Secret Service, and not even just talking about the injustice of that, but like the sink of that is fucking crazy. Yeah, it's like that feels like some like anthropological story from like that I'd like read as like, oh, and I'm like, surely this is embellished, but it's like happening in real time right now. It's amazing.
Well, this is what I said to David Gill. I said, because he basically said that, you know, when we're talking about sync, a lot of what we base our beliefs off of are like 9/11. Lauren Coleman does school shootings all the time. I'm talking about Waco, and there's a little bit of like heartlessness and saying that the individuals, we're saying that their deaths are more symbolically meaning than the actual suffering that these individuals, like we're saying that there's more meaning than their suffering.
Oh, I guess I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about that? How do you answer that? Because it's true.
Well, I mean, it's two different modes of relating, right? I mean, there's what it is that we're projecting into it, and then there's like the thing in itself. And so, and if you're looking at like, if you treat it that you're coming up against that storm wind when you're trying to analyze something, you know, like you're going to be like having to like weed through these like layers of an onion, while what it is that's on the other side of that is of a different nature. It's kind of hard to explain that, but it's like you're looking at a replication and you're working with that, and then people are like treating it, well, what about this reality? And it's like, this doesn't negate that. Like, if anything, it's just a corollary. And yeah, it's, I guess if you're saying like what a matter of vantage point of like what it is that you're you know, kind of
is it wasteful attention? Like, there's so much suffer. It's the same thing that like Philip K. Dick's friend in the book Valis says to him. He always mentions like, you know, on Judgment Day, he makes this comment about him walking his cat, right? So he walks his cat. He doesn't put his cat on a leash. A car drives by. The cat goes out into traffic and dies. And Kevin in the book Valis's argument is, on Judgment Day, I'm going to hold up my cat and be like, what the fuck? You didn't have to kill the cat. Like, you can't judge me because so if there's so much suffering going on in the world, why are we worried about syncs that may or may not have been in the Beatles?
Well, they're still affecting us right now. I mean, like, I just watched, so I didn't watch the Super Bowl, but I did watch Michael Jackson's Super Bowl halftime because it was recently up-res to 4K. And it's interesting to seeing him fly around like Peter Pan or, you know, Tinkerbell at Disneyland Castle during the fireworks show, and how Super Bowl has become I don't think it's nearly as important to the people as they want it to be today, you know, but it used to be. I think at that point they controlled them. It's important to Jesus, superb owl, you know, but it's weird to look at the Beatles and Tavistock Mind Control, and when they had that kind of social control. And, you know, maybe I'm confused. Maybe there always were people that weren't swayed as easily, but it just seems like there's less, like there was billions of people watching Elvis at a time, and there just isn't the same retention of, there isn't that monolithic retention that they used to have to the symbolism that they used to have. So the Beatles are really interesting for that because they're part of this monolithic symbology. Like, in an international sense, the Beatles are more popular than you even understand, because you go to Taiwan or Hong Kong or parts of China or parts of the Soviet Union, you know, parts of old Russia and Africa. Well, just anywhere where you hear a taxi cab driver who's wanted to come to America, who's obsessed and memorized and can't speak English properly, but has memorized the Beatles, right? The Beatles are so important, so monolithic in terms of their impact
Type 1 civilization media.
Right. Yeah. So it's hard not to notice that there's an effect being had by people listening to it. And I think that's why synchronicity isn't necessarily as esoteric as people say. A lot of people go to school to do this. In Ready Player One, the movie, you've got a kid who just loves, and he's a fanatic, versus a team which is paid to know all the trivia about this guy's life, right? So again, the knowledge versus the wisdom in like the Twister movie. And he's got the love for it, but they've got all the data and they're trying to figure it out because they're really, you know, even without loving the synchronicity, they see that it is affecting people. Millions of people, like if everyone wants to be Elvis, their lives will be impacted by how they try to be like Elvis.
Twisters fuck people up, man. Twisters affect people.
Yeah.
Yeah, one could
if we could
drop a house on your sister.
We could predict how they form. And literally, like we could get up inside with like a bunch of little sensors, and we could let them loose and study how the mechanics of how the Twister works.
Filing cabinet.
Twister's basically pi. It's pi for Goyim, and I think that the sequel is going to be even more like pi.
The movie Pi for the Goyim. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's my
I thought
review
that Pi was kind of for the Goyim too. I didn't know. But yeah.
Depends. It's not like a FUBU thing though.
It's actually really, really fitting because in Pi they're looking for a 216 letter name that's in the Torah, and 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. It's the gematria of Gevurah. The gematria Chesed opposite Gevurah is 72. 72 times 3 is 216. Also, so there's this whole thing because the Klipot they're said to enter in through Gevurah and rule the 12 diagonals in this interim until the end of the exile. So that is really a stormwind coming through Gevurah, which is the 216. So they're actually like really crazy connected in a really weird way. And so like I take that like Gevurah is related to I think referenced in the Ba here there was as a big red eye. And so I think of like how like if I think of the red eye, I'm thinking of Hal. But like Hal is also like the Cyclops of the Odyssey. Like that's why like it is a space odyssey. Like that's he's yeah. So anyway,
I think you mentioned the red eye. I think of the episode of Breaking Bad, Fly, which won all kinds of awards. But it starts and ends with a blinking red light. I think it's on a smoke alarm or something. But it's this close up of this red light. It looks obviously like Hal's eye, but there's a fly that's stuck in it or whatever. So it's like there's a and the whole episode is about them looking for the fly in the lab.
You've seen Full Circle, aka The Haunting of Julia, right?
No, I haven't.
I have.
Okay, well, okay. So it's got Mia Farrow and Keir Dullea. Keir Dullea of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So he is killed by a heater in that movie halfway through. That's actually like a red light, glowing red light heater. Yeah. He's killed by a heater. It's so fucking bizarre. Movie is like so symbolic from beginning to end. Like the symbolism.
It's the 2001 version of Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And so it takes because they came out the same year and they're about the same thing. Rosemary's Baby in 2001, but 2001 is about the birth of the Messiah or the Christ, and then Rosemary's Baby is the birth of the Antichrist. They're actually if you start Rosemary's Baby at the fade in of the dawn of man of 2001, then they end at the same time. So they're like basically the same length.
There's also
He's just been sitting there. I figured we just like cameo Hegel for a while. While
living silhouette. Demon Seed with Julie Christie.
I missed it.
Wait. Yeah, Nephilim Portal Baby playset.
Dope.
Wow.
Dope.
That looks pretty sweet. I want the Nephilim Baby playset. Oh, that
dude,
you see, that's like
what you do.
Well, he does it well. That's how.
Did you know that Jay Coates has been doing those too?
Fake moon landing, spirit cooking.
He's been making his own package, like sync, like things like that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say a Nephilim Portal Baby playset. We were about to throw down.
Yeah, he'd have to sue. You know, that's intellectual property.
He also doesn't have a homunculus growing kit.
Oh, that's so good. I just did an episode with Juan. It was really fun.
That's just funny. That's just funny as hell.
Gosh. All right. Bohemian Grove, Wet Market Lab. I missed
That's all you get for now. That's all you get for now.
All right. Well, is there anything you guys want me to cover before I pull up some more places they can get more of your content? You good? We've been going.
I want to know what's new in
217.
Mormon news this week.
I'm just gonna solo you. That's all we're gonna do. I'm just gonna look at
Yeah,
you.
well, I want to know what's new in Mormon news this week.
Bro, April is Gen Con in Utah. So that's what happens is they go have living prophets throw down. I'm gonna watch Jacob Hansen wrestle Jacob Isbell because those are two.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Heidi Love invited us.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty great. And then, but also, yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if there's anything like that's too big of a deal. Time travel.
So whoever
though.
wins becomes the prophet. Is that how that works?
No, they're just arguing over like the polygamy issue, which is like we did the debate, but I feel like talking never ever answers anything as well as a wrestling match. So that's the thing. It's probably going to really decide something once and for all. So that's going to be
So if
cool.
like the polygamist wins, then everyone has to become polygamists.
So that's what's weird because like he thinks it's done with, I guess, but that it was good that it happened. It's a really weird thing to wrestle.
You can say that anything that happened was good that it happened. That's what you know.
I guess. I mean, yeah, it does feel like Holocaust denial, though. Like it's the polygamy equivalent. It's the Diet Coke.
Right.
You know,
there's just always those kinds of arguments. You'll see that from Ricky Gervais on his podcast. You know, he'll just like be like, well, you know, if you did kill Hitler when he was a baby, where would we be today? Like other possible, you know, like it's just like,
dude. No, I mean,
well, there'd be no Fanta. I like to point that out constantly. If someone kills Hitler in the past, we don't get Fanta.
We would have something way better. There would be an orange Italian soda. Don't worry, probably a Croatian Italian soda. It would have been, you know, something slightly more and better.
It would, but it wouldn't be Fanta.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't have gotten Project Paperclip, and then NASA wouldn't have happened the same way, and you know, all kinds of things.
This has been my thought.
Like, music wouldn't be the same.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna go back in time and we're gonna stop James Polk from becoming president in 1844. That's been my thought. If we could just stop James Polk from becoming president, it would solve somebody's got a bunch of
just go back in time and stop the
Eagles.
evils.
Think about no. But which evils do you stop? And it's easy. You stop James Polk from being elected because he goes and he destroys Mexico, which leads to the end of Maximilian's reign of Mexico and turns Mexico into, you know, an American like we just continually exploit Mexico there on after. It begins the colonialist period, which leads to the Philippines. His James Polk, being a Jacksonian Democrat from Tennessee, starts the antebellum distaste for the North, which leads to the monolithic Yankee federalism out of Lincoln. Lincoln then being nearly assassinated by the Pinkertons. We would have stopped the Civil War from ever happening, right? And we would have stopped the federal government from becoming the monolithic thing that we're afraid of. Everything comes down to the 1844 election. So we just have to take out James Polk.
I don't know, man. See that this in 63, the book by Stephen King about some dude going back in time.
Yeah. No, that's a good book for Democrats.
And the Hulu adaptation of James Frank.
That's a good
thing. He did the same thing. He basically said, well,
he goes to Kennedy
though.
If
you kill Oswald, Wallace becomes president. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's the same and it was horrible. No. See, the thing is, that book is important because it tells you that book is for Democrats who wish JFK hadn't died, and it's a book. It's a book by neocons telling them why George Bush Sr.
had to change it.
Dude, look at his fucking Twitter feed. Jesus Christ.
The book is literally
because
John Wayne
when
Gacy
he wrote
is
the
the
book,
clown.
He said that Morin Shield or whatever his name was had nothing to do with the CIA. After he wrote it, it came out that Morin Shield did have to do with the CIA.
Yeah,
so he actually had to change it in the series that Morin
that's
Shield
not
was a CIA
that book.
agent.
All right, if you're looking for truth in a King novel, you're gonna have problems. But what you will find it.
You're gonna find it.
But what you will find
King has
is
no
you
moral boundaries.
If you're looking for apologetics for the neoconservative takeover of the United States, the assassination of JFK, and the CIA overthrow of the government by George Bush Sr., you find the apology right there in the story that if that hadn't happened, then amphetamine-driven submarine pilots would have launched nukes. That's the whole point of that book, that Kennedy was soft on nukes. He was on PCP and weed. He wasn't... At that point in the United States, we didn't have the automated systems we needed yet. people were still like on amphetamines, like 18 hours, 36 hours to fly planes, to everything was crazy. And it wasn't a safe time to have a peacekeeper in charge of the United States. So they said if we had George Bush Sr. in, he'll be able to keep us safe. That's literally the whole story.
Is it ever a safe time?
It's designed for boomers. It's boomers are supposed to believe that the Cold War were better off because they got rid of Kennedy. That's what that book's about. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying King is crazy.
Stephen Bush Sr. killed Kennedy.
Stephen King is just like,
I agree. It's not that I disagree, but that's what you just said.
Yeah, but George Sr. didn't get the kill shot. That was another guy.
I think it's open now. You're allowed to talk about like Woody Harrelson's dad. You talk about Woody Harrelson's
dad and every movie that Woody Harrelson's played in.
Woody Harrelson's dad.
They were both born on July 23rd, which is 7.
What you see, Meta Egg. Okay, one more sync was in The Thief and the Cobbler. The villain is the one-eyed DeJille, which has this like bright red eye, right? You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Which they stole The Thief and the Cobbler to make Aladdin, essentially. Way better movie. Okay, and then Walt Disney on the train, because House of David, dude. We really should like do a deeper dive into House of David sometime, because that's just crazy.
We should do a House of David and the House of Jacob.
Yeah, we'll have to look into.
We'll have to look into after the House of David.
Yeah, what's the House of
144 individuals, which was what that video said that the House of David was trying to make. They were trying to make 144,000 individuals who were highly skilled to make amusement parks and buildings and all of that. But 144,000 is actually the House of Jacob and not the House of David.
Wow. That's crazy. Guys, go to Meta Egg, which is the place to get Will Morgan. He disappeared, but we found him at Meta Egg. So you can find his videos.
I'll be back. Give me
he does, yeah, and you have to come back, definitely, for sure. We'll do some more stuff soon. I definitely want you all, though, to watch his Frank Zero talk, and we should do something with Frank Zero soon, because Frank is awesome. It's been a while since we've had him on.
Symbolism in cartoons. Especially
he goes,
that particular episode was around 9/11, but we do have one planned for reptilians, like all the shape-shifting reptilians in comic books and stuff of that nature. I have to admit that Paranoid American is already like way ahead of us on this topic. I'm not gonna lie. I want to say to two individuals, Alex and Paranoid American, I have a high respect for you guys. Just so you know, we haven't had like very much contact. However, Paranoid American is what we're doing at Meta Egg, and yeah, I just wanted to say that. Alex, you're a champ.
Well, yeah, so are you. I
Thank you, man.
knew you were coming on, and I wanted to be here. It's always fun.
I love that I just saw you breaking down Gargoyles and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I'm a fan already.
I love you, man.
Yeah, it's the same thing that you're doing. What I've discovered is that if you cut a whole cartoon down into 10-second clips, that copyright won't cut you. So if I make my own trailers about the individual like cartoons, then I can leave them playing behind us as we discuss them, and without getting tagged for copyright or whatnot.
These are some really fun videos he has also on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, just like follow Sartorial Me, because it's got a lot of really great, like if you're flipping through Instagram or something, like you're gonna want to have cooler things to look at, and this will just, he's got all kinds of cool videos that'll kind of break open your mind in a quick bit. It's awesome.
1 minute. Yeah.
These are sweet. I like these. But yeah, definitely come back. Also, Paranoid American is a beautiful man with amazing eyes. And here's his combo pack. He's got one left. This is the last one. Get it, boy. Get it while you can. Get it while you can.
I might throw something in fun too. Who knows?
Yeah, that could be a cool thing.
It won't be illegal this time. I've learned my lesson after the last one.
Here's the serial killer 90s style holographic sticker sheet. You can put these on your friend's kid's bike.
Perfect for Valentine's Day. See the little holographic hearts? Perfect for Valentine's.
Yeah,
just gorgeous.
there you go. And then also some cool shirts as well. I like the shirts. And then go to the comics. You can see he's got some super cool comics, including the new Chosen One. You're going to want to get Chosen One, issue 1, and then get issue 2 because it's coming out soon. Time Samplers, already thinking about disorder of space-time involvement with the Skull and Bones. He's thinking thoughts. So you're going to want to read these. Check these out.
This is the most accurate representation of a Skull and Bones ritual in any comic book that I'm aware of. If anyone knows of a better or anyone at all, let me know. But I think this is the only one that represents the entire thing.
You could sue him, so be careful. You know, all right,
Paranoid
but also
is the image of conspiracy theory.
But do you have a new project on a GoFundMe that we need to like look at too? A Kickstarter?
The big one is Paranoid Summer. It's only got 14 people. That one right there, the 2024 summer catalog. I'm dropping 4 different issue 1s all at once. As soon as this gets somewhere around 100 signups or something. But this one also, it includes Mold, Black Mass Pizza, and one called Lee's Demons, which is about Lee Harvey Oswald actually trying to save JFK from demonic possession.
That's what you got to do. See? Oh, that's great.
Hey, that makes sense. Like one of the laws that JFK like instituted was the ability for a state to enforce the Sabbath, which was a separation of church and state.
Well, he also took back funding for Haiti, which really pissed off Papa Doc Duvier, and Papa Doc Duvier basically said that he put a curse on Kennedy because of that.
Brutal. All right. That's interesting.
So yeah, there are conspiracy theories that say that JFK was the bad guy.
Well, he did like PCP, so he's not all bad. All right. Also, make sure to go to thesyncbook.com where you can click on videos, go to Synchflix, and you can find David's work. He's got all kinds of crazy synchronicities of music and film put together. You're going to want to also go to MK Ultrasound 723, or if you look for MK Ultrasound, it's the only MK Ultrasound that I know of on Twitter. And here he's got highlights, and you can watch all of his syncs, including new ones. Here's one, Johnny Mnemonic paired with White Zombies Astro Creep 2000. So that's going to be cool. I haven't seen this one yet. I do love these. These are 2 things I love. So I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, when the song, so there is the connection with the more human than human. He says, "I am the," what's the name of it in Blade Runner? Nexus 1. So it's like in the song, right? So this isn't Philip K. Dick. Everyone confuses it because I think it's, what is it, William Gibson or something like that. But anyway, yeah, the him referencing that it's but when that track comes on, both times are the 2 of the times in the movie where Keanu Reeves plugs himself into virtual reality. So it's like the second time that it plays is really ridiculous. But yeah, it's
virtual reality is more, AI is more human than human. AI is more human than human.
I'm going to not play it because there's a little bit of nudity, but Aria and George Michael's album Faith were released the same year and day. So here's your After Dark sync, I guess, right there.
I was trying to remember that last night. I uploaded this. I think it was last night. I was like, I'm gonna have to remember to tell Andreas not to just push play on this one. So
I totally did already, but I luckily got it at just like the right angle where she was just like climbing up the side of her like some medieval Renaissance painting, and I think that'll be okay. And if it's not, sorry everybody, you'll be fine. But ET superimposed with Poltergeist literally at the same time. Like if you like ET, you like Poltergeist, you don't know which one to watch, these problems have been solved. So
nice, thank you.
It's pretty important stuff. So yeah, make sure you guys go to David Plate's MK Ultrasound and also Cryptocubrology, because he's a handsome man and he's got a great bunch of information for you. So you were born 19 years after Emmanuel, and I was born 666 weeks after Roman was with Samantha in Jack's hot tub. So these are the kinds of memes for you and me. You know what I mean? These are the cream of the crop of memes.
Yeah,
this is
pretty good, I thought.
This is like
my favorite. This meme is legendary.
It's inner party kind of.
So many memes have come out of the Super Bowl. It's pretty interesting.
I've decided you found like the best meme template with that. Oh, can we look? Can we just? I was thinking about it earlier. I thought Alex would mention it, but if you scroll up just a little way, scroll back down. That right there with the Stanley and Kubrick showing up in the credits for Twister,
And Twister,
like
yeah.
side by side. Yeah.
Oh wait, no, I was just right there. Sorry. Go back. Where is it? Oh no, I
Okay,
I'll
whatever.
get there.
Screw it.
No. I care. I'll make it work. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's an hour 50:03 credits of Twister. You get to see the communicator. You get to see Kubrick, Stanley, Tony, played by Anthony Rapp.
Oh, and Tony. That's
Kevin
the thing.
Spacey's accusers.
Is that right?
Kubrick, Stanley.
Yeah.
That's great.
Patrick Fischler's in a bunch of David Lynch stuff. So yeah, it's Kubrick, but it's a very weird esoteric. They don't ever call them these names in the movie. They're just called that in this cast list for some reason.
Wow.
So that's the evil storm chasing team, the black monolithic guys. So anyway, yeah.
Oh.
It's the Black Whirlwind.
Stanley, Ben Weber. I just was informed by John Phil Ryan on Twitter that he went to high school with that guy, and I was just watching 6 Feet Under, and he has a scene in that where he's a hiker and he comes across a VW bug in the woods, abandoned with a skeleton inside of it, a dead person. So
wait.
This is Ben Weber who plays Stanley in Twister.
Whoa.
Wait.
Wow.
Go back. Is that Anthony Rapp? You're saying Anthony Rapp is okay? So Anthony Rapp is wait.
He's
Anthony Rapp is one of Kevin Spacey's accusers.
Yeah. He is.
Anthony Rapp is an actor who was in a movie with Andras Jones. I know who Anthony Rapp is. He was in like Rent and stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
he's
weird.
Red Rum Tony in that. So there you go.
Yeah,
And he was in Red, and he was in Star Trek. Yeah, he plays Paul Stamets in Star Trek.
Huh.
All right. Well,
Stan?
Yeah. That's the advertisement for my.
Thanks for the overtime. I feel like we had a Super Bowl that went into overtime that my team lost just like 1 second before whatever the 13 seconds. I guess technically.
You have a team. See, for me, it's like the Superb Owl. Every year, I pray we'll just win for once and get it over.
No, it's my dad's watching it at the same time, and I grew up in the 80s, and like with my dad, just like his mood depended upon the Niners like so hardcore. It was like if they lost, he was like pissed off kind of until the next time they won again. So it's like made the 80s cool, but the 90s started to suck because like the 80s was just like he was just what's fucking happening? Yeah.
What kind of like father of an occultist, like, and what kind of son would you be if you didn't prepare him for the like obvious fact that wrestling, football, and everything is, fixed by the stars, right?
Oh, we talk about it all.
I sat my dad down and I gave him the talk.
Baseball earlier tonight as being almost like it was basically the professional wrestlers, like how like the professional wrestlers had like every different kind of weirdo represented that fought in the ring.
Yeah, the two towers.
The Shaw. Yeah.
The House of David.
Right. Yeah.
Was that a real one?
The Black League. Like there was all these different like
Goldust and transvestite.
Like Captain Planet battling
the Shaw was cool because you didn't even really need to watch Desert Storm because you just had to watch wrestling.
Even the IRS was represented.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Dentistry.
Right.
They had the.
I'm gonna go eat
the undead.
I'm gonna go eat some food. Bye.
That would be.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.